Okay, I'll call the meeting of the Ojai City Council to order. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Mayor Johnston,
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Blatz,
Here.
Councilmember Francina,
Here.
Councilmember Haney.
He is here. We are pulling him into the webinar.
Okay, and Councilmember Wyrick.
Here.
Okay, we have a quorum. Pledge of Allegiance. Well, the city manager being the one who can maybe stand up down there with the flag, lead us in the pledge.
Sure. Okay. Hand over your heart. Ready, begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. Thank you, James.
Thank you.
Okay, approval of the agenda. Are there any changes in the agenda? Hearing none, the agenda stands approved. There are no presentations. Public communication will be at 7:30, and I have two cards, one from...
Mayor Johnston, can we hold for 1 second? We're having an issue getting Randy into the meeting. Councilmember Haney.
If he came in on the public side, he would have been there.
All right, so how do we fix it? Webinar registration approved.
Okay. Then he needs to. Yep. There you are. So your name is Randy F. on this? Okay.
So apologies, we are trying to get Councilmember Haney in. We can probably put him on my, oh, is he in? Okay. We got him in. Okay, we can proceed. Apologies.
Okay, Randy, did you clear security?
Looks like he's muted. So James will unmute.
Okay, he's not quite clear yet.
Yeah, he'll unmute him right here in 10 seconds.
Okay. We don't want to deny him his First Amendment rights.
Yeah.
All right. Are we in?
Yep, we can hear you.
Okay.
Yay.
I see no picture though. Is that intentional?
I'm having a bad hair day, Mayor.
Okay, well, your secret's safe. Okay.
I have no idea why my picture's not up. James, am I doing something wrong?
You push the video camera.
Down at the bottom of the screen, you should see a video camera.
Oh, there we are. Okay.
There you are. And you're right. You do have a bad day.
Now I'm trying to, how do I enlarge it, James?
You
It
can see.
looks good here. Is it showing up small on
You're
your screen?
fine. You're fine, Randy.
Yeah.
Yeah, what it is I'm, there am I.
Laura? We're fine. We're good.
Yeah.
to
Yeah, what it is, there we go. I couldn't see any of you. Okay, now I feel better.
Okay, good.
Souza, you're having a very good hair day.
Well, thank you very much. Well, they were
Okay.
out and I got my hair cut.
Okay, we've done the pledge. Randy, did you have any requests on the agenda before we approve it? We didn't hear any other objections or,
Are we on the agenda? No, but on the consent, I'll have one.
okay, we'll pull it when we get to that. Okay, presentations none, public comments at 7:30. So we are now on consented calendar, and Randy, you want to what pulled?
I wanted to pull Jay.
Jay.
reappointment of incumbents to the commissions.
Okay. Do we have a motion on the balance of the consent calendar?
I'll move to approve.
Is there a second? Was there a second?
Second. Warwick, second.
Okay, moved and seconded. Any, I guess, without objection? So approved. Okay, Randy, you're on with Jay.
Yeah, Mayor, the only issue that I have, and it's, I want to make it clear, it's not personal, because I don't know the gentleman, but that's one of the problems that I have with Souza's nominee. Reading his application, I didn't have a sense that this gentleman has any idea what the Planning Commission does. And I don't know if he's attended meetings. I don't know if he understands Title 10. I just have a lot of concerns that we're just putting someone on a Planning Commission because we needed an applicant. So because of that, I can't support this applicant. I just wanted to say that.
Okay, well, I don't know Mr. Trent personally, but he was engaged in community meetings regarding the lot on Montgomery that the council inherited from the state for affordable housing unit. And so I think he is somewhat familiar with what the Planning Commission and the city does, but other than that, I don't know. So,
Mayor Johnson,
Bill?
I was thinking, since Souza nominated this gentleman, we might want to hear from Souza.
Yeah, I'm waiting to speak. I nominated him because I felt that first of all, he grew up in Ojai and he graduated from Nordhoff. He's a little younger than the rest of the Planning Commission. He has 2 children, ages 15 and 11. He has, he expressed an interest in planning and projects that are compatible for Ojai. He's eager to learn. I'm sure that, I'm definitely willing, I'm the liaison to the Planning Commission. He's extremely enthusiastic about learning the ropes and jumping in tomorrow evening if we approve the nomination. I was also interested then in, you can go to his, I assume that you've read his qualifications. One of the biggest complaints in Ojai is speeding traffic. He has a good background in traffic calming. He was very successful in his neighborhood in Ventura. His wife his mother-in-law is Colleen McDougall. I really like that he had deep Ojai roots, and he is very, very concerned about the future of Ojai. I think that's as important as the technical aspect. He doesn't
Right.
have a conflict of interest, or anything of that nature.
Right, and the Planning Commission isn't supposed to be a panel of professional experts. We have a staff for that. So I think that any citizen that has, a reasonably good understanding of the community as a citizen, it makes a good candidate. So I would support it. And are there other comments? If not, do I have a motion to approve the 2 nominations?
I will move to approve.
I'll second it.
That will be both nominations.
Right. Okay. Any further discussion?
I just would have hoped that if Randy had concerns, that he would have taken time to meet with John Trent.
Well, no, let's not get into that, Souza. Okay. We're not evaluating each other. Everybody has the opinion. I think you've done a nice job.
Okay.
Okay. City Attorney, do we need a roll call on this, or is this a by acclamation?
No, a voice vote is sufficient for this one.
Okay. All those in favor? Aye.
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 Those opposed?
Nay.
Okay, we have 1 nay. The motion carries. Okay, we are now on discussion item, and we put this number 1 because we have about 24 members of the community who wish to address the council regarding the policing services. And I assume, the Black Lives Matter issue and other related topics of which Ryan had asked us to. Well, I think was it Bill? Were you and Ryan were the ones that requested this to
Yes, sir.
to get the input from the community. So, unless there are questions from the council, I think we can proceed. We have 24 on the list. If we stay with our 3-minute, per speaker, it looks like we can handle that. I was going to cut it back a little, but unless the council wants it reduced to a lesser time, we'll go with the 3 minutes. Okay.
May I make a suggestion? Because
Sure.
there's no way we can finish this right at 7:30. I don't know how many people are waiting to make a public comment, but could we do that?
Now?
Just a thought so that we can.
Yeah, no, it's okay. Is there any problem with that, Matt? If we just go ahead and,
Legally, no, because the stated time on the agenda is a target time, not a requirement. So we can take public comment early.
okay, did we get written remarks from Ron and from Michael Shapiro, or are they going to call in?
They are going to call in. And I'm looking at James to see if they are currently on hold.
Yeah.
They weren't expecting until 7:30. So.
Okay, they are on the line, so we can't take them now.
Great.
Okay, we'll take those two first, and then that as a courtesy, okay?
Okay.
So I guess it's Ron's up
Ron.
first.
Hello there.
Hello there.
Hello.
Wow.
Hey, thank you all. Wasn't sure how that was going to work. Good evening, members of council. My name is Ron Solorzano, and I am the regional librarian for the Ojai Valley. I just wanted to take this opportunity to provide you all with an update on the current status of the Ojai Library following our recent period of closure. Since our partial reopening in the beginning of June, the Ojai Library has been offering walk-up service for the pickup of items on hold. With this new service model, customers can place holds on books, audiobooks, and movies online through our catalog, and can also call the library during our open hours for assistance. Current hours of operation are Monday through Friday, 1 p.m. to 6 p.m., and Saturday, 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. Those visiting the library to pick up holds must wear a face covering in accordance with local public health guidelines and are asked to observe social distancing when interacting with library staff. We're also excited to report that customers of all ages are able to participate in our summer reading challenges this year by visiting our website. You can enter yourself or your kids to keep up with your reading over the summer and to get a chance to win several fun prizes. The Ventura County Library is also offering grab-and-go STEAM activity kits at our branch locations, which include the Ojai Library. Finally, we have a wide variety of online services available, including virtual story times and sing-alongs on our YouTube channel, live homework assistance through our e-library, and an expanded selection of ebooks and other digital content. So please visit our website at www.vencolibrary.org to learn more about what your library has to offer in these interesting times. And that's all I've got, and thank you so much.
Okay, thank you, Ron. Okay, and next up is Michael Shapiro.
Hello there. Do you have me? Yeah?
Yes.
Mike.
Okay. So you have the audio, right?
Yes, we hear you, Mike.
Well, good evening, everybody. Thank you for this opportunity and this unique process here. I just want to say just on two items that you're going to be discussing tonight. My first comment about the Maricopa Highway beautification plan. You know, April 24th, of course, April 24th, 2019, Edith Rubeloff, of course, was killed trying to cross an intersection in her walker. September 24th, 2019, one of my dear friends, Norman Rem, was driving his Mini Cooper when a car sped out of one of the exits of Nordhoff, sideswiped him. The car was completely totaled and flipped over. Police came, were about to use the jaws of life to get him out when they were able to open up the hatchback in the rear to get him out. His car was totaled. He sustained a lot of injuries that required a year of rehab. And of course, we all remember Dr. Fred LaFare's 14-year-old son was killed and struck and killed there as well. If the Maricopa Highway Beautification Plan was in place or had been in place way back then, before any of these, I absolutely believe the mode of the way people traveled on that road would have been such that all of those would have been prevented. And I don't know how many more there are, but there were others that we know about. It's certainly close calls. So there's no doubt. And I have an op-ed that's about to appear in the Ojai Valley News that expresses some of the other reasons why I think the beautification plan and the traffic calming is a win-win for everyone. Not least of which is also, I've had a lot of personal, lengthy experience with our county's planning division and their somehow, love of approving huge industrial truck traffic coming down Highway 33 from industrial projects up in the Los Padres Forest. And the most recent one is coming soon is a uranium mine that was defeated years ago at White Rock, Piedra Blanca. It's back on the drawing boards. I don't know if it'll ever see the light of day in time, but it is being seriously considered. I believe this plan would make it almost impossible to be approved trucks of any kind through that road. And finally, with regard to the police contract you will be discussing later, I would like to see written into the contract the absolute ban on police chokeholds and a ban on any racial profiling of minorities anywhere in the Ojai Valley. And those are my comments on those two items that I know you'll be discussing later this evening. And I thank you for the opportunity to speak with you.
Okay, thank you, Michael.
You bet.
Okay, those are the only public comments we have. So now we are going to go to discussion item number 2, which is the Ventura County Sheriff's Office review of services, contract policies, and procedures. And by way of background, that the council did appoint a subcommittee of Ryan and Bill to work with the city manager and review the performance of the sheriff, the results and outcomes of the last year's crime statistics, as well as the contract itself. So we'll go around the table. Does the council have any question of staff or anything, or should we jump right in and let the public tell us what they think?
I just prefer jumping in, hearing from the public personally.
Okay, I would agree. If there's no objection to that, then let's get started. Number 1 is Emma Bailey.
Go ahead.
Emma, you're on.
Emma, can you hear us?
I need an interpreter.
Okay, we'll try coming back to Emma. We'll go to Ryan first, and then we'll try Emma again next.
Okay.
Ryan
Ryan
Bigler.
Bigler?
Ryan Bigler.
He hasn't
Okay.
signed in yet.
Okay, who's next on the list that's signed in?
Aaron Snyder?
Okay.
Okay, Aaron, you're up.
I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you, Aaron.
Yes.
Okay. Hi, my name is Aaron Snyder. I'm a longtime resident of Ojai. I've lived here for 15 years. One of the reasons that I love living here so much is the atmosphere here, the sense of community. It's one of the safest places in America by just about any measure. We've got a quiet population, minimal crime, and yet we're spending really a really large portion of our budget on policing with an organization in the Ventura County Sheriff's Office that really couldn't care less what our community wants or needs. The police forces are supposed to protect and serve their communities, to work with their communities to find the best and healthiest ways to keep everybody safe, healthy, and happy together. The VCSO does not work with the people of Ojai. It's appalling to me that they won't even negotiate their contract. I understand that they haven't meaningfully engaged in updating our contract with them in 40 years. You all, as our elected officials, you have no say over our community's law enforcement practices. The sheriff's office refusing to allow independent oversight in the form of subpoena power, that isn't acceptable. This is our city. We should have the right to determine how it's policed. We should band together with other communities like Camarillo and others in the region with similar concerns to ours, and we should force the VCSO to negotiate if they won't do so on their own. We ought to have transparency to be able to accurately assess the real value of the services provided by the VCSO, and we shouldn't settle for what appears to be a take it or leave it kind of an offer. without exploring our alternative options really deeply and thoroughly. I want to see Ojai spend much, much less than $3.5 million on policing. I believe we should expand the definition of peace officers to include mental health and medical professionals, social workers, and victims advocates, and incorporate that into our budget for peace officers. By doing so, we could stop asking the police to do all these things that they aren't trained to do. We could get people the help they actually need, and we could do our part to curb the national trend of using guns to solve problems that require words and empathy. I really believe that Ojai deserves a say in its own law enforcement, and I call on the City Council to ensure that we gain self-determination in the very near future. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Aaron. James, I'll let you decide who's next in the queue because
Okay.
my list and whoever's called is not matching up.
Yeah, it's not matching up quite. We'll try Emma Bailey. No,
Emma, are you
not
out
on?
there?
She's not showing on the list.
Okay, can you go to the next person on the
The
list?
next one who's showing on the list is Carolyn McDonald.
Okay.
One moment. Promote to panelist?
Hello?
Hello?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah, is this Caroline?
Yes, this is Caroline.
Yeah, okay, you're on.
Okay, thank you. So when we're talking about where money should be allocated for the health and safety of all of our citizens living here, I think we need to look at options that aren't the police officers, because according to several sources, including racecounts.org, Ventura County is the most racially disparate in terms of crime and justice in California. And there are ways we can reform our police force, but I think investing in other ways of helping our community is ultimately going to be the best solution, particularly pertaining the homeless community here in Ojai and in California. There are a lot of ways we can invest in resources to help people without homes, because that is a lot of what our police officers deal with, and they're not trained to deal with resources that don't exist. You know, how can you help homeless people if you're trying to give them resources that don't exist? So if we were to spend some of the $3.5 million allocated to the VC Sheriff's Department on focusing on helping people in our own community by creating things like a homeless shelter, a crisis center, focusing on social workers who have been trained in helping people with mental health crises, the police officers would not have to be as involved in our community because the issues they would be dealing with would be helped by other people who are more trained to deal with those issues. I understand there are some cases where we need the aid of police officers, but similar to Aaron, I think that those individuals helping us should be members of our community and take a serious interest in our community. So I greatly understand and respect the need for law enforcement, but there are ways we can invest in it that are at less of a cost to our citizens and our community.
Okay, is that it?
Oh, yes, that's it. Thank you so much.
Okay, well, thank you.
Thank you.
Being very succinct. Okay, who's next?
The next person I have showing present is Lynn Francis J.
Okay.
I'm sorry, Mayor, but is the audience at home also looking at this giant timer on the screen?
Yes, that is what the audience is seeing.
Okay, there's no way to get rid of that? At least not tonight.
Hmm.
I don't want to hold up the meeting. I'm just
Yeah.
asking if there's a simple solution.
Not really a simple one, no. Yeah,
Maybe-
so I guess we're asking everybody to bear with us. It's the first attempt to try to get the public participation here. So.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, is Lynn out there?
I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can.
Good. Hi.
Hi. Hi.
I come to you as a homeowner in Ojai for the last 36 years. Our home is in Taramina. And over that time period, I imagine that I personally have, through my property taxes, have probably paid for several officers' salaries. I'd like to see my tax dollars go to more pressing needs. Needs such as victims advocacy, social workers, and other mental health assistance for our homeless, or services and activities for our young adults who really have nothing to do in town except for kind of hang out. And then there's always the big issue on the table, which is our deficit. So the idea of the ability to reduce our deficit by reducing the amount of money that we're spending on for the sheriff would be another wonderful benefit here. I think we need accountability for and a say in the most costly line item on the city's budget. To spend $3.5 million on a service for which we have no say seems an inappropriate use or an inappropriate use of our funds. The other thing I want to talk about is just the quality of the policing that we receive here. We have, excuse me, I'm sorry, my phone decided to ring. It seems to me, and it's always seemed to me, that Ojai is the training ground for the Sheriff's Department's new officers. We have this rotating door of young officers, which results in over-policing and overzealous policing. And it causes problems for our young people who can't even live in their town without being harassed by police. So I just would like to ask the City Council to take this opportunity to ensure that the Ventura County sheriffs are accountable to the city, which is their customer. It's unusual to have such a large service for which the customer really doesn't get to choose what they want. So I think there was a lot of value in Ojai working with the other cities that are using the Ventura County Sheriff's Department services in order to come to and force them to come to the table and negotiate a contract that would be affordable for our city and that would really give us the services we need. So I'm asking the City Council to please take this as a serious request from members of the community to insist that the Sheriff's Department come to the table and renegotiate. Thank you.
Okay. Who's next up?
The next person I am showing present is Eric Fruth.
Okay. Where's Eric? Oh, okay. Eric, are you there?
I am. Can you hear me?
We can.
Excellent. Well, good evening, honorable city council members. My name is Eric Fruth. I'm a lifelong resident of Ventura County. Over the past couple weeks, I've spent upwards of 30 to 40 plus hours compiling data across the past 3 fiscal years for all the cities in Ventura County. In doing that, I saw that every single city allocates over 1/3 of their discretionary funds on police departments. In Ojai, we allocated $3.3 million to the police last fiscal year. $3.3 million is a very powerful amount of money. That amount of money could erase the student loan burden of over 100 people. It could pay for 5 educators' salaries for half a decade. It could triple the amount of money, it could triple the annual amount of housing vouchers issued in Ojai to families in need of support. And the city of Ojai wields that amount of money on an annual basis. I understand that the Sheriff's Contract Review Committee has been tasked with looking at the 43-year-old VCSO contract, and I very much commend that action. I'd like to highlight the specific importance of 2 things and then share what I think needs to be done moving forward. First, the Sheriff Ojai's discretionary spending allocated towards the police is way too large. It's an entire 1/3 of the general fund. Second, the rates at which services are provided are very high. For example, a half-time captain position costs the city over $200,000. Those service provision rates have been extremely difficult to for both the public and other city councils to find out and are not directly expressed in the Ojai annual budget documents or in the budget documents of other VCSO contracting cities. The fact that those service provision rates are not transparent and included in budget documents seems to me like deliberate obfuscation to hide the huge amount of money spent on an inherently violent and racist institution. So moving forward, the review process that the city is conducting needs to solicit input specifically from Black and Brown communities that are targeted by militarized police terror to determine if we as a community feel comfortable allocating six-figure salaries to officers within the VCSO, which has a failing grade on policescorecard.org. The review process also needs to continually make all documents that it obtains regarding police service rates and other budgetary totals open and accessible to the public. And those are all my comments for the evening. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Eric. Okay, Gail, who's next?
The next person I have listed is Nuri. I'm going to mispronounce this, Ronahi. I'll unmute you.
Yeah. Nuri, are you there?
One moment.
Yes. Hello.
Hello.
Yes. Yes. This is Nuri Ranagi. My name is Nuri Ranagi, a resident of Ojai. I demand that police be abolished and Ojai provide emergency health services to people experiencing mental and emotional distress and domestic problems. Health professionals should come to an incident without an agenda to arrest or punish people. I also demand that volunteers be given access to the local jails to support people who are brought into those dehumanizing places. In 2015, I was 75 years old, driving my husband to the hospital. We were having an argument. I became agitated and pulled over in a business parking lot. The store owner offered to call the police and I accepted, hoping that they would help me to calm down and continue safely. However, what happened was far from healing. 3 police cars with 6 police officers arrived quickly at the scene. They were prosecuting us separately. They were pressuring us separately to charge against the other, while neither of us wanted to file a complaint. I told the officer I was disturbed by the large presence of police, so they arrested me. My experience in the Ventura County Jail was heart-rending. The procedure are designed to humiliate people. My arrest had nothing to do with being armed or carrying a banned substance, yet I was strip searched and ordered to bend over so that police could look into my anus. After this procedure, I asked the lady officer if she found what was she looking for. Rather than me, she was enraged. There were about 10 young, There were about 10 young detainees, mostly mothers, in a small holding cell with me, walking, moaning, and crying, arrested for minor infractions, being besides themselves with worry about their children. They were pacing back and forth, and in tears, I did my best to be that soothing presence. All the women I spoke to were imprisoned for minor infractions.
Thank you, Nuri, for your remarks.
The next person I'm showing is Noah Lashley.
Noah. Noah, are you out there?
Noah, you're unmuted. You should be able to talk.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi. So I am Mostly just going to echo sentiments that have already been said. I think the lack of transparency with the Ventura County Sheriff's Office is pretty egregious, and the fact that the contract hasn't been updated in over 40 years is pretty indicative of a system that is not working well. And it's already been said before, but I feel like if we are going to spend such a huge amount of our city budget on something like the police force, I do feel like the officers or that like the police should be, sorry, I'm trying to catch my breath here. I'm sort of flabbergasted that an entire third or almost a third of the gross budget of the city of Ojai is spent on the sheriff's office, and that the Ventura County Sheriff's Office has little meaningful relationship with the greater community of Ojai. I think that, like it's already been said, a huge portion of that amount of money can be reallocated towards social services that might better protect and prevent our community. Reallocating funds towards like the public library, for example, or youth services, or services for our elderly population, or mental health services, addiction services, education services, public transportation. You know, I feel like there's a lot of things that can be improved in Ojai that would benefit from that kind of care. And so I think I'm going to yield the rest of my time, but I implore that you please advocate for our community, and yeah, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Noah. Gail, next.
Next is Amanda Lesra.
Okay, Amanda, you're on.
Hi, can you hear me?
We can.
Hi.
Hi.
Good evening. My name is Amanda Lesra. Tonight I am speaking as someone who calls Ojai home. Ojai spends $3.5 million, which is 30% of its budget, on law enforcement in a town with an elderly population and minimal crime. That said, I'm going to share an experience my mother had with the local law enforcement to provide insight into what happens when residents do interact with the police. While sitting in a local bar, my mother told the owner that she thought America was becoming fascist. He firmly disagreed and then called the police. 2 officers showed up. They told my mother to accompany them. When she asked why she was being arrested, they slammed her face onto the wood counter and handcuffed her. She was then taken to a cell where she sat by herself for 20 hours. She was denied food, water, and medication. When she didn't answer my calls all night, you can imagine that I imagined the worst. She was denied a phone call until the next morning. At no point was my mother told what she was being arrested for or when she would be released. When they did release her, they didn't give her a court date or a fine. It was as if nothing happened except for the bruises on her face and arms that turned purple, green, and yellow. I have pictures. Ojai spends $3.5 million, which is 30% of its budget, to do what I just described. The integrity of this decision is contingent upon the idea that citizens are protected with this money. My mother's experience demonstrates that they are not. We need trained mental health professionals to respond to situations in which there is psychological emergency. We need, is that my time?
No, you have time. Keep going.
We need de-escalation tactics to be taught and for the use of force to be severely and transparently reviewed, disclosed, and called into question. The city of Ojai attempted to review its contract and services with the Ventura County Sheriff's Office multiple times over the last several years. Our patience was demanded. However, patience is earned only when there is good faith that adequate measures are being taken. In this case, the only adequate measure is to rewrite the contract with the Ventura County Sheriff's Office to protect and reflect the actual needs of residents. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Amanda. Gail, next.
Next is Nicolette Walker, and I'll unmute you.
Nicolette, you're on.
Hi, can you hear me?
Uh-huh.
Hi, my name is Nicolette Walker Itza, and I am speaking as a 3rd-generation Ojai resident. I'm also a local preschool teacher, and I'm the mother of an elementary student. like I said, my whole family has grown up here for generations, and my personal experiences with the BCSO here in Ojai has been limited, and it's also changed over the years. A lot of my interactions have been very short and cold, and when I have been bold enough to speak up and ask questions, either in person or by even just calling the office, I've always felt dismissed and met with defensiveness. And I am a white woman, and so my experiences differ completely from the Black and Latino community members and friends that I have who live here, who have been stopped and harassed and even taken out of their cars. I feel like our elected officials should have a say in what law enforcement practices we as a community want, and the budget spending needs to be transparent and overseen by community members for accountability. I think that the amount that we spend is enormous, especially when thinking about all the resources we lack in other areas. Our schools are being forced to cut more and more every year. We're placing the burden on the working families who have to make up the difference with fundraisers, PTO, or they have to choose to suffer the inequities if they're unable to pay those extra costs for music, art, extracurricular activities, language and health services, quality food, or even on-site childcare for their children. And in speaking about youth services, I feel like I've spent time in the streets marching, and a lot of the people that are there are the youth, and they want their voices to be heard. And when we went to the to the police department in Ojai, nobody would address us there, and nobody came out. Nobody would listen to the teenagers who were there wanting to be heard. So I feel like there can be a lot better use of our money. It can go to homeless services, social services that would address the widening wealth gap in our community. And it would also relieve the duties of the police in Ojai to the necessary. Also, I feel like drug rehab could be a big use of our money, because a lot of the arrests that I see are for minor drug infractions. Thank you.
Okay, you're welcome. Gail, the next speaker is?
Next is Jill Manfredi, and I will unmute her.
Okay, Jill, you're on. Jill? Are you there? Hi.
I think I'm unmuted.
Yeah, oh, you are. You're on.
Okay, very good. Thank you. My name is Jill Manfredi. As a constituent of the city of Ojai, with 14 years employed in local secondary education, I call upon you to step up to support Black and Brown lives in this momentous time of our nation with the local reallocation of policing funding. Not only do I want to see the city of Ojai policing budget cut in half, that money applied to social services and school support programs that can be better served the needs of the community. But I want the city of Ojai to insist upon prudent restrictions on the use of force by police officers currently employed. More importantly, I want confirmation of a marked reduction in the racial profiling used by officers in our community, which would help foster support of our citizens of color. In a show of solidarity, I want regular reports from the town government on the state of racist policing in our town. Specifically, regarding the renegotiation of the contract with the Ventura County Sheriff's Office, I ask that the council look into sublimation of resources to support youth services in Ojai, diversity training for police staff, and core virtues mentoring by certified medical professionals from outside of this community. In addition, I believe a detailed report on the duties of officers and their habits of accruing overtime pay is in order and past due. As a taxpayer, I insist on transparency in city government and join the chorus of other cities and towns in Ventura County asking to release the Ventura County Sheriff's Department from the current contract until a new and transparent agreement can be reached. I propose adopting a type 1 review board as delineated in the U.S. Department of Justice's Citizen Review of Police Approaches and Implementation, where citizens investigate allegations of police misconduct and recommend findings to the chief or the sheriff. It is essential that this review board have independent subpoena power. The city of Ojai spends $3.4 million plus on its general fund on police services, and such a large sum deserves new oversight considering the loss of income from the COVID-19 closures of business and hotel transient taxes. What are we really getting for our money? Thank you for your time.
Okay, you're welcome. Thank you. Gail, next.
Next is Ted Nava, and I will unmute you.
Okay. Ted, you're on. Ted.
There he
Hello?
goes.
Hey, before I start real quick, I'd like to check to make sure that Emma Bailey is logged in. She's been having some technical difficulties, but she's here with me now. Hello?
I'm sorry, are you saying she's present with you?
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure she was on the meeting, on the call, so that she could make her comment.
She's not showing on the list on my computer screen.
Is Tara Saylor logged on or in the queue?
I'm sorry, could you repeat that?
Is Tara Saylor in the queue?
No, she's not listed either.
Well, Emma Bailey is with me, so maybe after I make my comment, she can just make hers on the same line if there's a technical problem.
Sure, I think that's fine, Ted, if you want to.
That'll be fine.
All right, thank you. I was privileged to grow up in Ojai in a family of means, insulated from the city that I love's ongoing war on its own poor. And that is one of the functions of privilege, to allow us to turn a blind eye to the dark systemic realities that our lifestyles uphold. In a lot of ways, this is the dream of modern Ojai, to be able to hide away from the world's troubles, smiling on through rose-colored glasses at a failing civic system, just so long as property values stay high. Ojai is a city that has continually neglected to develop the services necessary to care for our poorest and most vulnerable members, preferring instead to let that work, much of which is the normal provenance of city governments, fall to volunteer organizations and our lone social services nonprofit. Help of Ojai is an incredible organization that deserves all our love and support, but they should not have to bear the full weight of service to our community, not when there is plenty of funding available, waiting to be justly reallocated from the bloated, exploitative, and unaccountable contract with the VCSO that many others are detailing in great depth tonight. Homeless services, mental health services, food security, community and government mutual education, free after-school programs, disaster relief, housing justice. These are the things that contribute to a dynamic, diverse, and thriving community. Instead, we overpay disaffected and overarmed officers to spend their days keeping the city's homeless population out of the sight of profitable tourists. Ojai's tourist economy thrives on the backs of its working poor, a demographic who increasingly cannot afford to live within the tightly controlled city limits, disallowing them to vote on issues that directly affect them, such as how they are policed, and further disenfranchising the majority of our population. All of this has resulted in a city segregated along lines of race and class, a city that reinforces the popular American narrative of toxic poverty, that everyone is economically where they deserve to be, when we know for a fact that there are deep systemic reasons for this. I believe that we can do better. We have a chance now to participate with leader communities across the country in revolutionizing the way we understand public safety and service to our community, and in developing compassionate civic systems that improve the quality of life for all people, not just the rich and not just the white. We must defund and reallocate now. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Ted. Okay, Emma, you're up.
All right, can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay. I respectfully question our city's allocations for our contract with the Ventura County Sheriff's Office. I question the sheriff's efficacy. I question their objectives, their quotas, their arrest records. I question their use of force policies, their complaint protocols, and their transparency and reportage. I question their shown biases. Essentially, I seriously question if the city of Ojai is receiving the most yield per dollar spent on public safety, as I have no way of assessing the value of VCSO's service to my community. It is for this reason that I call upon this council to continue their formal review and restructuring of this contract. Tonight, we are hearing the voices of the public while we examine our shared relationship with the Sheriff's Office. I myself am speaking as a woman who at one time sought a kind of justice through the sheriff's office. I live here in Ojai because I moved home from college to file charges and give an interview to a detective of the Sheriff's Office Violent Crimes Unit. I had low expectations and a specific objective in coming forward with charges. I knew the district attorney would not bring me justice in the same way I knew that the sheriff's office could not and had not made me safe from a violent crime. And had these charges progressed, I would not have wanted the offender to serve jail time. What I wanted was accountability and a paper trail of evidence for anyone else who would come forward after me. I wanted the offender to feel afraid and look deeply within themselves about their actions, and I knew his incarceration would not heal anyone. I knew that my healing would come from my community, that my safety would come from my community and not the law. I think that this is something that council must hear. We must acknowledge that crime and criminalization are both issues of public health. The crimes of sexual assault and domestic violence are a threat to our collective health in the same way as the criminalization of poverty, mental illness, and substance disorders. In this way, I also question the underlying philosophies of law enforcement and public safety. It would be insufficient for this council to patiently wait for our client-provider relationship with the sheriff's office to improve, waiting for the sheriff to respond to our letters, to agree to our contractual stipulations. I have seen you met with resistance in years past. To that, I am here to remind you that any reason for you to recuse yourselves as an elected official from reviewing and restructuring this contract would be unacceptable to your constituents, as you have accepted responsibility for oversight of our municipal contracts. I need not remind you that our 40-year-old contract in no way empowers us to set standards of performance, policies, objectives, or oversight of our own jurisdiction. There is no reason why we cannot enshrine standards of performance well above the county and state mandates that BCSO is already responsible for meeting. There is no reason why we can't expand the definition of police officers to include peace officers, social workers, and mental health professionals. I expect there to be a series of community forums for the public to participate in the restructuring of this contract and the equitable reallocations of money we spend on VCSO on methods that meaningfully serve the public good. I hope tonight that you listen deeply to the comments that you receive. You are hearing a wide array of points of view calling for specific contractual demands and reallocation goals. We are asking you.
Okay, thank you, Emma. Sorry for the bells and whistles there, but where are we?
The next person is Chris Barton.
Chris Barton, okay. Is Chris unmuted? Chris, are you there?
Now he should be.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah, you're on.
Yeah, I'm Chris Barton, born and raised in Ojai. And yeah, I'd just like to say I can guarantee that we don't need to be spending 30% of our budget on the police. That's $3.5 million, which is more per capita than any other city in the county. I believe we should be reallocating these funds from the police into mental health services, drug rehab, resources for the homeless, and education. We need to be addressing our societal problems at the source rather than responding to them with a militarized police force. And so far listening to this meeting, it seems like this is what the community wants. And we need the police budget to be transparent and in alignment with what the community wants. So we need to take some of this budget and put it in other places. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris. Okay, Gail.
The next person is Holly Johnson, and she's unmuted.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, Holly, you're.
Thank you for allowing us all to speak on this timely, passionate topic. I'm so touched by all my community members, what they've said so far, and I'm going to echo most everything that has been said. I'm speaking as a 20-year-old resident of the Valley, a witness to the increased national awareness and response of social justice issues, the national call for defunding police, and I say the time is now. The existing contract with the Ventura County Sheriff's Office is long overdue for review. I stand with the points of concern laid out by the City Council's letter to Sheriff Ayub, dated on July 9th. In addition, I am sensitive and aware of larger issues of policing in this nation and therefore question the validity and necessity of armed officers responding to all calls for community assistance, witnessing time and again, historically, the use of unnecessary force, the issue of unconscious bias within the human species, racial profiling, and the increased militarization of police. It emboldens me to speak up on this matter. There are ample examples of cities that have undergone or are currently revising their city budgets to better reflect the needs of its citizens. With roughly 30% of the city's budget dedicated to law enforcement in a town with relatively little violent crime, it is high time to reevaluate where this money could be better spent. The impact of COVID is still rippling through our community on all levels, and it is deeply irresponsible, unimaginative, and unwise to spend so much of the city budget on policing when it could be better spent addressing the diverse needs for community services. As stated in the Washington Post article of June 12th by sociologist Pat Sharkey, one of many articles written on this topic, do we need the police? The idea that residents and local organizations can play a central role in creating safe and strong communities is not new, and it is not particularly controversial. And yet we have never made the same commitment to these groups that we make to law enforcement. It is not hard to envision a place where police officers are confined to serve as backup to outreach officers, counselors, mediators, social service providers, unarmed traffic agents, EMTs, and become involved only if first responders request assistance or an arrest. In this unprecedented time in history, council members, please take every opportunity possible to prioritize, investigate, and evaluate ways to reduce the ongoing day-to-day need for the police presence in our town. Thank you so much for giving me this time.
Okay, you're welcome, Holly. Gail, next.
Next is Harmony Wade Hack.
Okay. Is Harmony unmuted?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes, can you hear
Harmony. Yep, we can hear you. You're on.
Great, thank you. My name is Harmony Wade Hack, and I've been a resident of Ojai for about 20 years. And I am going to echo what so many others have said before. I have witnessed the over-policing Ojai is subject to, and I'm upset that we spend 30% of our general budget on a police force in a town with very little crime. I'm upset that we spend 30% of our general budget on a police force when there are so many other social needs that money could go toward. Needs that, if addressed, would actually help prevent the situations that the police are called for. I think we could spend money on more affordable housing, on social workers to assist people with dealing with mental illness, on programs to help people with substance abuse issues, on after-school programs. The list is very long, and what is in question is our priorities as a community. I think most of us who have lived in Ojai for a long time have witnessed, traffic stops with like 4 police cars. There is clearly not enough of a need for the resources that we give the sheriff's office. I think it's also outrageous that our contract with the sheriff's department hasn't been updated in 40 years, and that the police, who get so much of our money, operate with little to no oversight. So as a resident of Ojai, I ask that the council renegotiate the contract with VCSO and drastically reduce the money we give them. That money should be directed to services that actually serve our community. Thank you for the opportunity to speak.
Thank you, Harmony.
Next is Gregory Trigub. I'm mispronouncing your last name, probably. And you are unmuted.
Gregory, you're on.
Hi there. Hello, all members of the council. My name is Gregory Trigub. This is just further emphasis of what everyone has said so far, which is incredibly important. I'm making an urgent demand for defunding the excessive spending on policing and not investing in humanitarian social services. I'm privileged to not have had such a violating experience with the police like some have shared earlier, but firsthand stories are too common of individuals being denied basic rights, being violently mistreated by the police, and the police being held unaccountable for their actions. I demand a substantial decrease in the policing portion of the city budget. I question policing behavior and the calls that we have made law enforcement officers to respond to. I question to what degree the majority of the budgets across Ventura County spent on law enforcement meaningfully serve our objectives for public safety. Metrics of arrests and dispatched arrival times do not paint a full enough picture of true public safety, and thorough data about the VSCO is very difficult to find. We need more transparency. Currently, every aspect of the city budget is being considered for budget cuts. It is the council's responsibility to review police spending, especially in light of the severe financial hardship the city is facing due to COVID-19. The council should review the terms of the contract with the VSCO to ensure their behavior matches the public expectations and the public welfare. The $3.5 million currently allocated to law enforcement services can be put to use in services which reflect more of our community priorities and values. There are numerous services such as education, housing development, mental health support, de-escalation professionals, drug rehabilitations, and more that would be beneficial to building community safety and trust. Ojai can be a model for a safe, nonviolent community with supportive and just system for its citizens. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Greg. Gail.
Next is Helena Pascarella.
Okay.
And
unmuted.
I'm trying. There she goes. Okay.
Okay, Helena, you're on. Helena?
Hello?
Hello, Helena, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
I can hear you. You're on.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for allowing us to participate in this meeting. I have mixed relations with the police department. I'm a homeowner here. I've lived, I just returned to Ojai after being away for about 15 years, 3 years ago. And my mom lived here. And the reason I am wanting to speak is because we've had, like I said, positive and negative experiences with the sheriff's department. And I believe that much of it could have been avoided, the negative, as people are saying how we should have mental health professionals with the police. And it's not fair to ask them to be psychologists when they go out on calls. And in my situation, what happened, my 70-year-old mother was actually arrested for aggravated trespassing because she was trying to enter or bang on the door of the neighbor who was a tenant at the time. And so I wasn't here. My mom is an immigrant, and I often wondered, had she been a different type of person and the other people were immigrants as well, how would the situation have played out? And I've never spoken about this. And what I really would like to have also is kind of a truth and reconciliation day where we can, because there's fear. And the only reason I'm having the courage to talk about this is that all these people and young people and old of our country are out there talking about the injustices that they have witnessed or experienced with the police department. And as people are saying about it being over militarized for such a peaceful, wonderful community. So I want to have some type of truth and reconciliation where we can all talk about this and have them listen to us and, explain to us and be there. But I also have to say, just last 6 months ago, my mom, who has Alzheimer's, and part of her issues from 10 years ago was because of her, I think, beginnings of Alzheimer's. She was lost. I lost my mother. And thank God I had the sheriff's department who helped me find her. But, it could have been a different type of peace officer is what I'm thinking as well. It doesn't have to be a militarized type of police that we have. Thank you again for letting me talk. I appreciate this.
Okay. Thank you, Helena, for your comments. Okay. Gail, do any of the names that are higher up on the list, like Ryan Bigler, is he called in, or Joe Manfredi? Or?
Yes, some of them have signed in, and I don't have a Ryan Begler showing, but I have an RB, and I'm going to guess that's Ryan, so I'm going to put him in the queue next.
Okay.
Whoops, where did it go? There it is.
Hello, yes, you guessed right.
Ryan, okay, you're on.
Great. Among others, I'm questioning the budget allocation in our town. When I learned that the residents of Ojai pay more per capita than any other city in the county for our contract with VCSO, and subsequently how much of our total budget is consumed by that, I certainly question the lack of oversight of their services. So I'm calling for substantial additional oversight. This call is further exasperated by the displays of violence used by the police force around the country as a demand for racial justice has been ignited in the wake of George Floyd's death. This violence is indicative of a broken system that trickles down to and is kept afloat by its local entities. When we demonstrated outside of the Ojai Sheriff Office, they chose to completely ignore us instead of standing with their community. They stand on the side of their system because to do otherwise is to risk termination. And regardless of that, VCSO should be held to the same standard as any other city contract. And the contract with VCSO is admittedly outdated, a bad business deal, and needs to be renegotiated with considerable fervor, because I think we've waited long enough. These funds, in my opinion, could be vital to other services. And I have to ask, are we truly putting our money towards the most optimal ways to ensure public safety? I believe that we can invest in our community safety and well-being in different ways. A lot have been cited. Ways that are preventive and proactive instead of militarized and reactionary. One of those ways is to reallocate the funds towards programs that explicitly make space for community development, unhoused people getting support, direct action to help substance harm reduction, and staffing qualified professionals to handle crises, because it takes longer to become a barber than it does to become a cop. So to give officers such a wide scope of responsibility seems irresponsible, to say the least. As a loud queer person growing up in Ojai, the police never made me feel safe. Far from it. What would have made me feel safe was community-funded programs that made spaces that actively showed me support as I learned about myself. I can only speak to my experience, but I'm sure there are other marginalized communities in Ojai who feel the exact same way. So I call for a formal review of the contract and demand that substantial and tangible action is taken to change the way we put our money where our mouth is in terms of allocating funds to serve our community to the best of our ability. Thank you so much for your time.
Okay. Thank you, Ryan. Okay, Gail.
And next we have Meadow Crosby.
Okay.
And she should be unmuted now.
Okay. Meadow, you're on the air. Meadow.
Oh, hello there.
Yeah.
Sorry. I'm still trying to figure out the Zoom stuff. Thank you so much. I'm so happy to be here and speak. I would just like to share my experiences with the Ojai Police. I lived in a van about a couple years ago, and in the middle of the night, I got a knock on my door. Very violent, 5 men shining lights into me, and they're like, I see you, wake up. So I got up and opened the door, and I was in my pajamas, and I have my surfboards in my van, and their attitude immediately changed. I'm a white woman, and they were like, oh, how's the surf? And yeah, just like 5 men. It was very excessive, and I did not feel safe. I said, should I move my car? They said, no, go back to sleep. But yeah, you can't park here. I don't know if someone called me in, but and then another experience I had about 2 weeks ago was I got pulled over, and I drive like an 88 Nissan, kind of beat up truck. And it's called a pretextual stop, when they stop you for something very trivial to see if you have a warrant for your arrest, or you're on probation, or you don't pay your insurance because you're poor, or your licenses, or your tags are expired, whatever. I mean, my tags were not expired, but they said that my surfboards were too long out of my truck. And I know for a fact that wasn't true, but I'm scared of them, so I just said, okay. And they let me off with a warning. This was 2 weeks ago. And yeah, I looked it up. It's a 4-foot minimum. My boards were 1.5 feet at the most. So these officers are obviously very bored. And they told me I had to take the trailer hitch off of my license plate so that they can see my license. So I did that. And then I got pulled over yesterday driving home from work, and they told me that I had plastic on my license plate and that I need to take that off. And I told them, I said, you guys pulled me over 2 weeks ago for having the trailer hitch ball thing in front of my license plate, but you didn't mention the plastic cover thing. And they're like, oh yeah, that's weird. And yeah, I mean, they let me off with a warning, but I'm just gonna say that these officers are way overfunded. They have nothing to do. They're looking around. They're just looking to make poor people more poor and just harassing the low income people. And I think I get away with it because I'm white. I get away with it because I can afford to pay my insurance, afford to stay out of jail. But it's like, what if I didn't have that privilege? So just want you guys to think about that and how these people are really servicing our community in a negative way. So thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Gail.
That thing is.
Oh, next we have Natasha Efros.
Okay.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Natasha, you're on.
All right. Thank you, council members. My name is Natasha Efros. I am a resident of Ojai. I am a mother. I am a public school teacher. And I feel our community needs to re-examine the place of law enforcement in our lives. The last many weeks have made it clear how damaging the police can be for people who are already marginalized by systematic racism, by poverty, and our inability to adequately support folks who are struggling for various reasons. And I want to advocate for a change for an additional reason. I live in Ojai because I value community, and I feel my fellow Ohioans do as well. I see this value reflected in the Ojai Search and Rescue Team, of which my husband is a member. I see this reflected in the Upper Ojai Relief Group that supported people affected by both the Thomas Fire and COVID, doing things like wellness checks for vulnerable community members in our neighborhood. And I have realized that the handing off of safety, violence prevention, and the mediation of community conflict to outside institutions like the police does not support my need to care for and feel cared by my community. And that is what creates meaning in my life, is to be connected to my community in caring ways and in direct ways. And so I am calling for a shift in how we spend our tax dollars to better reflect the caring community that I feel we all want to be. I suggest reallocating much of our police funding to unarmed health and social workers who could respond peacefully to emergency health and de-escalation needs, and who could also facilitate local volunteers to continue to enhance safety, violence prevention, conflict resolution, and doing things like wellness checks, perhaps inspired by the way Search and Rescue and Upper Ojai Relief serve our communities. So I just hope that we can emerge from this historical moment a more caring, integrated, close-knit community that serves all of its citizens. So I thank you for helping our budget reflect that legacy that we all want to leave to our children and grandchildren. It feels like the most important work we can be doing right now. And I will keep working towards that until that work is done. So thank you.
Thank you, Natasha. Okay, Gail, I see 3 or 4 more names that haven't checked in yet, maybe 5.
Okay. Next, I'm showing Andra Belknap.
Okay. Andra, are you?
Hi, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yeah. Yep, we can. You may proceed.
Oh gosh, now I have to find my comment. Okay, here I am. Hi, City Council. Thank you so much for making it possible to hear my comment. It means a lot. My name is Andra Belknap. I'm a resident of Ojai. I have spoken to most of you about this issue, so I will keep my comments brief. To me, this issue is pretty simple. As a city, a full third of our budget is allocated to a public agency that this body can barely get to return a phone call. That level of service is unacceptable, period. To put this in context for the public, our current contract with the Ventura County Sheriff's Office has not been meaningfully revised since the early 80s, even though the text of the contract calls for revisions each 5 years at most. The Ventura County Grand Jury called on the Ventura County Sheriff's Office to revise their contracts with contract cities like Ojai in 2012. They still have not done it. Furthermore, taxpayers have no ability to quantitatively evaluate the service we receive because VCSO provides so little transparency, and I have to suspect that is by design. My review of the Ventura County Sheriff's Office arrest data that is available shows that our money is funding a police force that predominantly deals with misdemeanors and drug offenses and predominantly stops Latino and Black community members. Pardon me, disproportionately stops Latino and Black community members. It is beyond clear to me, and I hope to you as well, that this is an agency in dire need of reform. Our money is not being well spent, and this community is not being treated with respect. I hope the council will recognize the unique political moment we're in, recognize the dire financial straits this community is in, and carefully reconsider what appears to be a blank check to the Ventura County Sheriff's Office. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Andrew.
So we have two more. Next is Liam Lesra.
Okay.
And one moment.
Thank you. Hello, I'm
Okay.
Liam.
Yep.
Can you hear me?
Okay, Liam, you may proceed.
Thank you. I was just here to say that $3.5 million spent on a community with a population of roughly 7,500 people is truly mind-blowing to me. I have to ask myself, what is it for? How is it used? And when I look around Ojai, I see on an average day, you know, if any of us stand on El Roblar for 10 minutes, we're likely to see 3 police cars. Yeah, this makes rich, law-abiding homeowners feel safe. These are the citizens that the police serve. The rest of us feel constantly under surveillance. I have lived in the community for many years. I've worked for a nonprofit in the community. I've been a business owner and I pay taxes. A few years ago, I was almost arrested when I locked myself out of my apartment in Miners Oaks at 10 in the morning. And a neighbor called the police to say someone was trying to break in when I tried to climb into my bathroom window. The 2 young men in uniforms came to my house. They forced us to walk outside, downstairs, and away from our building, questioned us for 20 minutes, then forced me to stay outside while one officer led my partner into our house alone to find proof of residence. The treatment we had received at that point was rude and confrontational, so after several minutes, I started feeling nervous and asked that I be allowed to walk upstairs to join her. The officer threatened to arrest me if I moved. What struck me about the interaction is that while my partner and I needed to get to work, the officers interrogating us seemed to have all the time in the world. Some people may say that she and I should have felt more comfortable and safer, knowing that the police were available and would respond quickly if someone was in fact breaking into our apartment. But that treatment of being forced to not only walk out of our house, but walk away from the building. And one of us, the one who was smaller, the one who was younger, the one who looked actually easier to mistreat or to like to have power over, was actually forced to go upstairs while I was forced to stay downstairs. I don't understand the separation. I don't understand the tactics. And I don't feel safe. And so again, $3.5 million for 7,500 people. I don't see what it does except create an atmosphere of surveillance over policing and really just riddle our streets with uniforms. That's not the Ojai I want to live in. That's not the Shangri-La I imagined when I moved here. And I hope that it changes. I really do. And everything that everyone has said about the services that we can offer our community education, support for the homeless, support for disabled. That's where I would like to see our money spent. And so I really hope this is considered. Thank you.
Thank you, Liam. Okay, Gail, next.
There's one more, and there's no name associated with it, it's just a telephone number. So if it's okay with you, I'll allow the speaker to talk and share their name with us themselves.
Okay, that's fine.
Gail, don't forget the recording.
Don't forget what.
Okay. There's a speaker with a phone number that ends in 7515. You're unmuted. You may speak.
This is Emma Bailey. I'm just listening in now. Thank you.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
I am.
I'm going to mute her again.
Okay, so we have like three that were planning to talk to us, but we haven't heard from.
Correct.
And one of those three, Megan Rudd, submitted a written comment, and so I will just remind you that there were 8 written comments submitted on this issue. Some of the people spoke and some didn't, but those were provided to council at about 5 p.m. today.
Okay.
Mayor?
Yes.
James was, I believe that James Hahn is prepared to play the recording submitted by Dr. Megan Rudd.
Yes, I believe we are able to play it if, assuming council desires us to play it, we can play that.
I would like to hear it.
Okay, go ahead and play it. Easier to. It's a couple of minutes, I assume.
Yes.
We're getting it ready.
Hi, my name is Dr. Megan Rudd, and I'm speaking as an advocate for the mentally ill. This population often interfaces with police officers during moments of their greatest suffering, and law enforcement officials often aren't trained on how to respond to people in this state. Let me tell you first a little bit about my background. I'm a licensed psychologist specializing in clinical psychology. For the last 8 years, I've had a private practice in Ojai, and I've been a professor at Pacifica Graduate Institute in Carpinteria. Previous to becoming licensed, I worked for 5 years part-time at Aurora Vista Del Mar Hospital, the only private psychiatric hospital in Ventura County. While working at the psychiatric hospital, I learned a lot about severe mental illness. I learned that most people suffering from severe mental illness are not violent. In fact, according to the Health and Human Services Department, the vast majority of people with mental health problems are no more likely to be violent than anyone else. In fact, people with severe mental illness are over 10 times more likely to be victims of violent crime than the general population. Now, I can tell you that at first glance, it isn't always apparent that people experiencing a mental health crisis aren't more violent than the general population. Interacting with someone who is, for instance, manic and acting highly irrationally, or who is responding to internal stimuli and is paranoid, or who is intoxicated by or coming down from drugs or alcohol and is highly anxious and irritated, it feels scary. At these moments, people are not exhibiting normal behaviors, so the instinctual reaction to witnessing these odd behaviors is the stress response to fight it or flight. It takes a certain type of personality combined with training and experience to not follow one's instinctual reaction to engage in verbal or physical conflict or to get the hell away. Training 101 for working in a psychiatric hospital is that using a calm, comforting language that makes a person feel safe is the best way to de-escalate a situation. Now imagine your typical police officer. Is this how they are trained to resolve a problem? It's no wonder police involvement with people, especially people of color, who are going through a mental health crisis too often escalates, and what was an easily resolvable issue turns violent or even lethal. Reducing the law enforcement budget and reallocating these dollars into community-based services that address mental health and safety, including the high rate of homelessness in the mentally ill population, is an appropriate reallocation of law enforcement public safety funds. As we are engaging in a meaningful dialogue of what public safety actually means, I believe it is important for trained mental health professionals to be deployed to respond to a mental health emergency instead of heavily armed and minimally trained law enforcement.
Okay, is that it, Gail?
Yes, that's it.
Okay, that's in the record, and we thank the doctor for submitting that. Okay, we have two unaccounted for, but I guess that brings us to the conclusion of citizen input, and we'll take this back to the city council, see how we would like to proceed. Yeah, Randy.
We've all been asked to review tapes of other council meetings, and we've all had people, community members share with us their concerns. And I wrote a kind of my brief thoughts on it. I'd like to be able to read that. I don't know when it's appropriate.
Okay, well, I'll tell you what, why don't we, we can start with you, Randy, but why don't we go around the table once, everybody can make their comments, whatever they choose, and then I'll ask for a motion. If we have some motion, we'll put it on the floor and we'll have something to discuss. Otherwise, we'll move to the next discussion item. How will that be?
Perfect.
Okay, so
All right.
you kick it off. Yeah.
Thank you, Mayor. Because I believe this is one of the most important topics we've discussed in City Council, I took some time to write down my brief thoughts rather than just speaking off the top of my head, which you guys have all seen me do. I'll start by saying that I'm in complete agreement that now is the time to review, reform, and provide complete transparency in our community regarding our contract with the Ventura County Sheriff's Office. I think we are fortunate that this renewal comes at a time when our country is struggling to face the issue of racism and police reform with more honesty and a willingness to grow and change. I have to admit that I was first jolted by the concept of defunding the police. But sometimes to get our attention, we have to get past the phrasing and be jolted into recognizing that there is a problem. Change can't begin until we're willing to look at something from a different perspective. This means that we are not only have to acknowledge the problem, we also have to admit that we just don't know what we don't know. The first step towards change is to listen and to pay attention to what others are saying and feeling. We need to realize that we are all human beings. We're prone to good and bad decisions, but most importantly, we must be willing to work toward the greater good. So let's start with all sides sitting down at the table and helping each other better understand the differences and difficulties of living, working, and policing in our ever-changing community. Police reform is not a one-sided conversation. As we expect our police departments to change, grow, and become more transparent, we must expect this of ourselves as well. The time is long overdue to truly commit to facing the reality of systemic racism in America. And as a community, we need to ask ourselves how we can become part of the solution. We may want to start with a resolution on behalf of the city of Ojai, acknowledging that Black lives matter and that we will not condone, participate in, or accept any form of racism, bigotry, or intolerance in our community. So again, I believe that we can, after tonight's meeting, vote on a resolution regarding that. While this is important, ultimately there are other words on a page. These are other words on a page, unless we're willing to put action behind them. In addition to acknowledging the problem and listening to those who have concerns, we need to form a plan of action and follow through on that plan. Throughout the history of racial strife in our country, we've gotten to the point where reports are written, plans for change are made, but not enough effort to support the change makes it actually happen. Let's be different this time, especially on our watch. Our current sheriff's contract consumes 33% of our city budget. It is time to have clarity regarding the services that are provided, their associated costs, and how they are serving the needs of our community, especially in regards to racial disparity. We need to determine if and how the existing services can be modified, if we can add or delete certain services based on needs, and what new services or types of policing will be available with new reforms. Finally, I want to add this. Ojai is one of 5 cities in our county. The contract with the Ventura County Sheriff's Department, I think it behooves us to be smart and not go alone. Though we are the smallest of the 5 cities, our needs are not unique. I believe the Ojai can lead the way in helping design a better contract that addresses and deals with the issue of racism, making our community, the entire Ventura region, a more welcoming and safer place for everyone. And I look forward to the continued discussion this evening on these matters. Thank you, Mayor.
Okay, thanks, Randy. Okay, I don't see a gallery shot, so I can't see anybody's hand, but who would like to go next?
I'll be, I would.
Susan? Okay, Susan?
Randy, thank you for your excellent comments. I support everything that you said, and I appreciate that you made a prepared statement. Very well said. I also want to thank the public for what they expressed. I share all their concerns and their suggestions about reallocating funds. There were a few moments when I disagreed with how some of our officers are characterized. And I want to remind the public that our current chief, due to COVID, is not able to interact with the community as much as our previous chief did. You know, the previous chief, Freihoff, had coffee with the chief, and it was very well attended, and it really allowed the public to interact, which is so important. But so we can't blame him for that. I feel like we have a wonderful new chief. A couple of questions. I would like, one of many questions, I would like clarity. Is it true that Ojai is used as a training ground? How does it work? I realize that I'm really ignorant if officers are consistently assigned, or if we have like how does it work so that they know the community? I'd like, information on that. And then I would like to know how much time is spent. Do the homeless get ticketed for, we absolutely need to have a safe place for the homeless to sleep. They should not be ticketed for, if I don't think that they are, but I'd like clarity on that. And then, a couple of my own observations, and I'm sure this is very typical in a city where there aren't enough mental health or drug or alcohol rehab services. When I was working in downtown Ojai over the years, I would see the same person, lying on the sidewalk, looking like he was passed out. I would go check. Then I'd see the officers take him to jail, and then I'd see the same person. The officers would be around him in Libby Park, and then again and again. And when I spoke to them, they said, yes, we take him to jail. He gets, cleaned up, sober. He gets a meal, and then they release him on the street. So it's obvious. What's the name? That's a revolving door. Is that what you call it? When someone is rearrested multiple times, and until either they die or they do something worse and they stay in jail for a long time. So it's so clear that if we could allocate funds to prevent that type of revolving door, among other issues. I don't know how it works, reallocating funds. So I'd like to find out how that works, if we're allowed to do that, or if there's a set, all of these things I would like clarity on.
The answer to that question, Susan, first you have to have the funds, and that is a real dilemma right now. We're talking about trying to cut costs for money we don't have. So it's not going to be reallocated at this point. Now, when the economy recovers, then we'd be able to have something to talk about.
Yeah, I was just asking, the contract is already for a set amount, and that's not negotiable. Is that correct?
Well, I think everything's negotiable. We just have to, that's what our committees, subcommittees
that's
be engaged in.
Yeah.
Yeah. They may say it's not, and I would not put this all on the sheriff. The rates that we're talking about are set by the county CEO and the board of supervisors based on input from the sheriff. But it's cost accounted, figure out what does a deputy cost, how many deputies do you need, that type of thing. So we then maybe see if there's a way to take a little less service. I think that point was made.
Yeah, I think the public is asking for clarification on that, what we can and cannot legally do. And that's all I have for right now. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Susan. Good comments. Bill, Ryan?
Ryan, you okay if I go ahead or?
Yeah, go ahead, Bill.
You know, I think we're, as has already been mentioned, really eloquent statements by Councilperson Haney and Francina. We're at an historic moment here. These times are really demanding us to step up between what we're hearing from the public and what we're seeing. I am trying to, I think I'm going to just say I'm optimistic that all parties to the situation understand that there's going to have to be thorough review. And just to be blunt about it, it turns out apparently that all the contract cities have the same kind of archaic arrangements from 40 years ago, where we're literally in an incredibly demanding and sensitive relationship between county and cities, dealing with less fiduciary and auditing oversight than we would be expected to, than we are, are demanded that we pay when we hire a street overlay company. If we were engaged in the kind of practices that have gone on for 40 years, that would be an audit finding if that's how we handled our street overlay program. So I think that it's extremely important. It's a matter of, and this is what I've kind of come to an understanding of, this is really a core fiduciary responsibility for each one of us. If we are, for one reason or another, and we can get into a long, there's various angles on that, paying an outlier fee for services rendered, then that demands our scrutiny. And then on top of that, where we don't really have a relationship between service provider and client that by agreement or contractual stipulation references standards of practice, references expectations of how to resolve issues in that relationship, then all of that needs to be updated. And when you're talking about something from 1980 and not reviewed periodically, not reviewed in a timely fashion, you're going to get these imbalances. You're going to get, by just a natural accretion of contradictions, you're going to get problems built into that relationship that this is the time to address. I just want to mention a couple little facts that I've come across recently. In 1980, the cost of one 24/7 patrol unit was approximately $180,000 when we started this relationship, each patrol unit. The sheriff says we need a minimum of 2 in our service area, which they say is a city jurisdiction. If you take just an inflation adjustment on that money from 1980 to 2018, that's $550,000. They're currently pricing each 24/7 patrol unit. And again, we don't know, as the mayor mentioned, we don't really know how they're coming up with the number of approximately 1.3 million each. So obviously, in real terms, the resources have gone up considerably. It's just something to think about. But there's also another issue. Since 1980, an outside agency defined a service area for each city called the sphere of influence. And my way, you know, I think if these contracts have been reviewed frequently, we'd be understanding, and maybe the minimum service standard is for the service area, not the city jurisdiction. Why does that matter? Because the other contract cities have jurisdiction areas very close to sphere of influence areas. We're only 54%. So implicit in the fact that the contracts have not been updated in a timely fashion, we kind of lose contact with the community's expectations and the outside reference to standards of practices. And not by conspiracy, but the effect of that is that we're paying for a lot of the overhead of servicing our sphere of influence that's outside our city jurisdiction. And we're talking about a lot of money when you just balance that one factor. So I think in terms of a fiduciary responsibility, in terms of standards of practice, building community trust, addressing concerns of the community, this is the time. And I'm hopeful that across the political spectrum of opinion, everybody understands you don't let a contract go for 40 years without revision, without updating. Mm-hmm. I think, to speak to Councilperson Haney's comment, I think that's something that gets traction across all the contract cities. And when we then point out that imposing a standardized contract on each contract city is by definition not going to best serve the taxpayers in terms of the maximizing the net benefit of services rendered. You can't take one instrument and apply it to a diverse set of characteristics and expect to serve the taxpayers in the best fashion.
So I suggest that
I just want to say that now's the time.
I would suggest that you and Ryan have that conversation with the sheriff's office first, rather than to be one-sided negotiating on the TV. I mean, I think it'd make a lot of good points, and they should be able to give you some reasonable answers. If they can't, then we have to figure out what our alternatives are.
I guess what I'm trying to say, Mayor, one sentence is the problems, in fact, are systemic with not going into timely revisions and updating these contracts. That's what's really got to change.
Okay. Well, on that point, let me give you a little feedback. Emma called or sent me a note and said, "What did you mean, Mayor, when you said that the master contract was needed some explaining and it was out of date?" I totally agree with you that it seems absurd that we would be on a master contract that was 40 years old. But the reality is that master contract is basically an open PO with adjustments for inflation and demand for services from the customer. We don't have to buy any and they don't have to serve any, but the county has said, yes, the cities can buy those services even though they're incorporated, and we'll share the cost. And I think you've made a good point over the last 3.5 years I've worked with you, is that sharing is not really been looked at for a long time and is disproportionately being placed, as a couple of our citizens tonight said, on 7,000 people in 4 square miles. So it is the county and the county auditors, whoever figures out these rates, that we need to first find out what the unit cost is. That, I suppose, is a factual thing. And then the question is who says we have to buy, a whole unit, a multiple of units, or possibly, like in Los Angeles, they used to sell a fraction of a unit. I think the reality the city council is faced with is that we don't have a balanced budget now. We adopted one, but because of the pandemic, our budget is no longer balanced. And the amount of money that we're not taking in, I don't know if the public's aware of this, and the city manager maybe wants to chime in, but my understanding is the last period for revenues from our major tax source, which is the transit occupancy tax, which was normally $300,000, the city got $10,000. Now, that's not going to be a great argument with the sheriff who's going to say, I still have to pay my people. But we should have that discussion with the county to say, look, we have to look at everything and be sure that we are not paying more than we should or that we can afford. And I think you have really made it pretty clear over the years that the day is coming when we can no longer afford to pay the price, and we got to figure out what we're going to do without. I'm saying this because whoever's listening in the community and the people who have taken their time tonight to talk to us, that they think there's extra money there, and there isn't going to be in the short term. But that's no reason for us not to address exactly what you and Ryan are going to go talk to the sheriff about. Ryan, you haven't spoken yet. Do you want to weigh in?
Thank you. First, I just really want to thank everybody for calling in, speaking tonight. I understand it's kind of not the easiest thing to get on Zoom in a city council meeting from the public side. And thank you for all the wonderful comments. And thank you to kind of everybody in Ojai and outside of Ojai who's having this conversation, because this is a long overdue conversation that makes a lot of people uncomfortable. And it's not easy to have this conversation. And people have, I think part of the reason why we haven't seen our contract look at and some of these other things have festered for a long time is because nobody's been willing to step up and really say, hey, we're not going to stand by and allow the same thing to happen again. And there's a couple reasons for that, right? One is the current situation we're in with COVID. For us as a city that is uniquely different from some of the other communities that do share in these services is that we are the most significantly negatively impacted city economically due to COVID because of tourism. And the reality is we can't afford to pay this amount anymore. And we have asked everybody to take cuts, from our staff to every different part of our budget, having a look at it. And this part should not be immune, and everybody needs to share in some of the pain that we're all experiencing. So that's one aspect that we have to look at here, and it's an important fact. But also, the social issues and the racial injustice issue that is going on in the community and in society as a whole is part of this. You know, it's not just our contract. There are issues that we as a community sometimes tend to forget about because we live in a predominantly white community where we don't have these acute racial problems that are in our face all the time, but they are there. I've seen them. Our constituents have talked to us about it. It is built into the system. And unfortunately, our community has that problem in different ways and at different times. And it can be the most vulnerable people in the community, whether it's mental health and homelessness or substance abuse. It could be people who are poor or juveniles and youth. Whoever the vulnerable people are in the community tend to have experiences with law enforcement that are negative, partly because the training that law enforcement receives and the tools that they are given are predominantly engaging a anti-violence type of crime situation that we don't see a lot here. And what we're hearing from our constituents, and there's a little bit of common sense in this, is that we have asked a police force to do way more than what its specific training is. And now we are looking at it and realizing that their relationships and their experiences in these different types of law enforcement that we put under the umbrella, they don't work real well with that training. They don't work real well with that ideology. The money we spend every month on transportation costs for police vehicles that are tanks designed to stop, things that just frankly don't happen here very often, or all the tools on the tool belt of an officer that are designed to be able to stop someone who's committing violence. It's not that they're never needed. It's just that we have to look at, is there a better, more efficient way? And that's the long version of defunding the police. Is there a better way for us to look at how we've done this forever? And frankly, we already defunded mental health. We already defunded substance abuse in a lot of ways. Now, I'm going to give credit where it's due. Our county is not 100 years backwards, some other places in the country and some other communities and counties that aren't as progressive. Our sheriff's department, I've talked with Sheriff Ayub personally. For those in the public that don't know, all of the council members here were on other boards throughout the county. One of those is the Ventura Council of Governments. Sheriff Ayub spoke in there. I talked to him, and the county is trying to move forward in different ways to deal with homelessness, where it's not a always going to jail situation and forcing someone to pay bail, and then they end up out and not charged, and it's a very costly, inefficient system. Homelessness is not a crime under California law anymore, and they're not supposed to necessarily go to jail. So these ideas are opening up a little bit, but it's also a time to help move those things forward that we've grown a little bit in and grow a lot. And listening to everyone is obviously step one. I think, Randy, I thought you made a great comment about that as we sit back and listen, it's clear that our constituents feel this way too. And not only do we not have the money to afford this anymore, but we frankly shouldn't have been paying this much for a long time. And the combination of the situation in society, the economic situation, and our contract force us in a situation where we cannot accept no for an answer on this renegotiation. The contract is older than I am. The terms in it are so archaic and built in a time, and we get a monthly bill that we essentially rubber stamp and has been going on for 4 decades. And how those costs vary each month, how the overtime works, how the transportation costs work. As Mr. Wyrick and I have dug into this, there are a litany of issues in our contract. The sheriff's offices in Ojai that we paid for a long time ago, there's lots of different angles of attack. But ultimately, we need to settle on the idea that we're not taking no for an answer, and this needs to get reworked. The amount we're paying per capita more than the next closest city in our county, which is Camarillo, if we were to pay the same amount per capita to them, it would save us over $1 million a year. That's a lot of money. That's 10% of our city budget. That is a significant portion. So we are undoubtedly going to push as hard as we can with the sheriff's department. That process has started. We're going to do everything we can to bring them to the table, understanding that we don't have any choice but to renegotiate this, but there's a lot more reasons than just what's going on this moment on why we need it to change. And, Marcia Kay, I want to give her some credit. Mental health issues in this community, probably 6 or 7 years ago, she started working on it with local police. They've been really responsive to it, and it has helped. In Ohio, it's gotten better. A lot of people don't necessarily see this. In my line of work, being a lawyer, I see it probably a little bit more. So I don't want to say that this is all doom and gloom and that we're here, angry at our police department, because this is not an issue of them not performing well. This is not an issue of some situation that occurred. We're lucky not to have that situation being the reason we're bringing up this conversation. But it doesn't mean we can't do better. And it doesn't mean that there aren't things to review. So our commitment on this is that's where we're at right now. If we're not going to have the sheriff's department open the door and welcome us in to talk about it, we'll keep knocking outside till they let us in, and we'll kick the door down if we need to. We're trying to get as far into that meeting as we can so we can have a real legitimate discussion that is very complicated. But I really appreciate, as somebody who's looked at this a long time and has a lot of different opinions on ways we could tweak things that aren't necessarily anti-police, but are about more reviewing where we've gone over a long time and how we can do it better. And I appreciate everybody else looking at it as well.
Okay, thank you, Ryan. Is there anything that you, Ryan, or Bill want from the council in the way of direction, or are you going to sit down with sheriff's people in order to get the conversation started?
Well, I know Randy had something first. I don't know if you want to ask.
Mayor, thank you, Ryan. And Mayor, there's 2 things going on here. And it's real clear. It's cleared by the public comments, and it's cleared by every council person that has spoken. The 2 issues that are before us is, one, the cost of service. That's in everything I read today regarding the past contract, the 2012. I don't even know if that was a grand jury report. It seemed like it was an audit called out by the county supervisors. But wherever it was, I read that entire thing. But 2 things come out to me. One is what it costs for services, and what the community is asking is, what are the services, and who is going to define the services, what we're paying for today, and what do the services look like in the future. So my input to Ryan and to Bill would be, you need to separate those 2 points, and you need to go at them in 2 different manners. because everything in every contract that I read, it's about billable hours based on a police officer, a sergeant, a supervisor, an investigator. When I was looking into what were the services provided, general law enforcement, investigation, traffic law enforcement, and patrol. There's no human element in that. And that's what everyone is talking about. That's what this Black Lives Matter is about today. It's about the human element. Now, Mayor, all I'm trying to say is my direction to them would be twofold. One, break those two apart and actually start a discussion on what services are and what we're going to pay for those services. And forget about this thing about 1 police officer, 2 police officer, 3 police officer. We need, if this is a defining moment, and we need to define those parameters. And more importantly, I think we need to be a group of 5, because if we don't get a commitment from the other 4 cities, we'll be picked off one by one, just like we were in the animal shelter discussion. We need to be unified, and we need to be unified in setting aside these 2 specific needs. Thank you.
Okay, so anyway, there were 2 things I was going to ask. One was, and I'm going to come back to and ask if there's a motion. But before we go to that, Randy has expressed what he'd like to see coming from the committee. Does the committee feel they need more direction, or do they think they've got a pretty good idea how to get started on this, so that we can expect when you come back in September that we'll have a fairly transparent discussion of the 2 things that Randy has spoken of? How did they arrive at the cost? How much are we paying for, and what are we getting for it? If I don't hear anything back from the committee.
Yeah, Mayor?
Yes.
Bill here. Bill Warwick. No, I think that's what I'm hearing, and that's what I would be looking for, is one, not only that we start reaching out to other cities, as Randy has talked about, but we also stay informed amongst ourselves. And we're entering into an extended period here where I think the council direction to us, Ryan and I, is to keep pressing. We've met with the chief and made it clear to the chief that we need to move to their negotiating authority people in the sheriff's department, and we're not taking no for an answer. But my only question is, given Brown Act situation, what's going to be the best way of keeping everyone informed in terms of how things are going and what kind of information Ryan and I need to be sharing with the rest of the council in this long period of no meeting that we're about to enter into? I'm a little concerned about that, because we've got to all be, hanging together in solidarity on this matter. Matthew, can you give me some opinion about how we can keep people informed?
So, depending on the subject, there are portions of this conversation that are legitimately within the attorney-client privilege. I can send a memorandum to the council that's kept privileged, that provides council a one-way update. It would be information to council. It can't be voting by email back, because we can never vote by email. Second would be, depending on the issue, public updates. The city manager could send an email to council that would be subject to public record, and would be the same information could go out to the public. That might be more useful, for example, when we get analyses from the sheriff's department of what they're charging and what for. Our negotiating position would perhaps be better suited for an attorney-client privileged assessment. But depending on the information, there are ways to get it to council.
So actual sensitive points about negotiation would be subject to a closed session for certain type of subject matter. In other words,
certain portions of the conversation,
right,
would be subject to it. Not all of it, of course.
And then if we felt like we got far enough down the road with the sheriff's department to talk about specific drafts of new versions of contract, I would certainly, I think that should be subject to some sort of public hearing.
I would expect that there'd be, I'll defer to the council and the mayor on how to structure, but I would expect we would have probably a workshop where we project, if it's, by Zoom, put on the screen, or if it's in person, if the pandemic has progressed enough by then, we hope, or been not progressed, but situations improved, project it up on the wall and have a discussion about it term by term.
Right, so we could have workshops and our maybe even closed sessions in this interim period, depending on what happens. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, and the pandemic has in fact really made this extraordinarily difficult. particularly on the two members of the committee, because this is kind of an eyeball to eyeball sort of face to face type of conversation with somebody, whoever's on the other side of the door. Okay,
Mayor,
so you guys.
Mayor, if I may, real quick.
Yeah.
I just want to say, I think, and this is subject to well, whatever the council feels, but I don't think our best foot forward is to start with organizing with other communities. I think our best foot forward first is to have a conversation about all these unique problems and see where we are. And that's to see where that process is. Because once we get folded into everybody else, some of these really awkward specific things that are Ojai related disappear. Like the fact that we negotiated a very inexpensive lease agreement with the police department to be able to use the building in order to keep our rates low, but that has never been recalculated to give us any additional benefit later on. There's the 4.3 square miles with 1 square mile being all golf course, and the per capita, not only population number, but the size of the jurisdiction number that's actually covered is significantly different. So it's hard if we get, I would love to do both at the same time. We just don't think we can. So what I'm hoping is that we can have a direct meeting with the appropriate people at the sheriff's office who we can talk to about these specific Ojai things, with the idea being we want some relief done custom tailored for us. And if that's not going to work, then they're going to be made well aware that we will communicate with other communities and join together as is necessary and look at things on a collective basis. But none of the other communities are calling us either. Camarillo's doing this on their own right now. We're more than welcome to find a way to kind of make sure we're all in it together. But in our research and looking at this, there's so many specific things to Ojai. I'm just a little concerned if we jump in with everybody else, do those get lost or not?
Yeah, I would agree with you, Ryan. And I think that the reason for a subcommittee is for you and Bill. Yeah, you know certain things or think you know certain things, as we all do. But when you sit down and talk with the sheriff's office and the county people to find out what's real, what are the non-negotiables, what are the alternatives that we're all going to be faced with, and then we can come back and sit down and have that public conversation of what are our choices. So do we have a motion out there? Randy, did you want to make a motion on
Well, I just wanted to, I'm sorry, Sousa. I think Sousa would like to speak, and then I'll speak after her.
Okay, Sousa.
Well, it's a practical, immediate question. The homeless shelters are now closed. I want to make sure that it's legal for a homeless person to sleep outside. And if I'm not mistaken, there's a sign behind City Hall that does it prohibit, maybe the city manager can clarify, does it prohibit people sleeping on our property behind City Hall? And can people legally sleep in the park if they're not drinking or doing any graffiti or any criminal activity?
Do we really want to have this on the fly? Why don't you have that conversation with?
I want to know because it's an immediate concern. I want to make sure our restrooms are still open, and I want to make sure that the homeless are not being ticketed.
Right. Okay. So have that conversation with the city manager and the chief. You can do that in the morning, and be sure that it's being addressed.
I think the public would like to know. Is it a simple yes or no question?
The restrooms are still open, I believe, and they are being hopefully cleaned.
Yeah.
But are we really advertising that we want people to come and sleep in our parks?
Well, I thought about that, and I doubt that any of the homeless are watching this Zoom meeting. So
Well, okay. I tried.
The answer is more complex than a simple yes or no. If you'll permit me, I'd love to send an email to the council that could be made public with the precise answer to that question tomorrow.
Thank you.
Right, thank you.
Okay. And the part of that, if I can quickly, the easy part to answer is we are keeping the bathrooms and amenities available so that everybody can stay clean during this pandemic. So we will continue to do that at this time.
Okay, Randy, the other R.
The other R, yeah. No, remember Randy F tonight. I'm Randy F tonight.
Yeah.
There's no need to argue tonight, and I'm not trying to argue. I believe what Bill and Ryan are doing is difficult, and I believe that they're putting their best effort and their best foot forward. So I do agree that going at this as an individual entity, our city, in a discussion with the county, I think is appropriate. I do say though, and I do firmly believe this, that there is power in numbers, and that if we set a base of what realistic service requirements are, and Ojai is the base as the smallest city within this 10 city county community, I'm thinking that that base becomes the template. And now as the other cities and their uniqueness create and develop their needs, that now other cities like us can look at those and say, yeah, we would like that service, or we would like that service. That's all I'm trying to say when it comes to that, Bill and Ryan, is think about identifying clearly what the services are that we're paying for, so that we can then actually come back to council and have that discussion, just like 5 years into the ATP discussion. At the last council meeting, we finally got a breakdown of costs of services. I think that's what the community is asking. So again, Mayor, I'm just trying to say that I think what they're doing is appropriate, starting out as a single entity. But I do think that if we don't come together, if I was the county and I had to choose between losing 1 or losing 5, what would I want to negotiate with? I don't want to lose 5, but I may tell a little Ojai, you know what, you're on your own. So
Okay,
that's all I'm trying to say.
Yeah, you indicate that the county will care if they lose something. I don't think that we have to be very careful as we approach this, because every city, I think Bill likes to talk about sovereignty. Each sovereign city, to the degree they have sovereignty, will have a little different thing that they want to buy and can afford off of the menu that the county is going to offer. The county will have a menu. They do right now. It's just they haven't kept their menu up to date. And they've also said that they only will sell in large lots, and we want to, we don't want a case of it. We want, something less than a case. But we've got to have that conversation so that Bill and Ryan have a really good understanding of what the choices are, and then we can talk amongst ourselves as to how we want to go forward. Because we started out with our own police department. It's a very expensive thing to have your own police department, and it's fraught with all sorts of problems. But if you can't afford to buy your services from someplace else, maybe you get forced back into that. We are really too small to do those kinds of things. So what we want to do, I think, is to understand what's available out there, be reasonable, but understand that there is a price. And if right now we're being told, according to what Bill's been informed, that there is a minimum purchase that is being allowed, I think that needs to be re-examined. But we're the smallest city, so we may be the only one with that problem. So anyway, did you have a motion though beyond that?
Well, I don't know if Mayor, I don't know if the discussion called for a motion tonight other than to allow Bill and Ryan to proceed. But if there was a motion that I wanted to make tonight, it would be for staff to write a resolution based on Black Lives Matter and based on the statement I made regarding intolerance and racism. And I'd like to see that brought to council and back in September if I can get a second.
I'd like to second that.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second. This would be something similar to what the city of Camarillo is already engaging in.
Yes.
So discussion on that, or are we ready for a vote on that? Okay, not hearing any discussion. I guess we, all those in favor say aye.
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 Aye. Anybody opposed? Okay, James, talk with our friends down in Camarillo and let's see what we can come back with. Okay, next topic. Where are we on the agenda? We are on the emergency response and update. James.
Thank you. And I have a brief presentation, some updated information. Give me 1 second. Okay, looks like it's working. So we wanted to just give a brief update Are you getting reverb here? Let's see. Okay. We wanted to give a brief update on the. Now? Okay. All right. Pardon the technical difficulty. We wanted to give a brief update on the coronavirus response and the latest happenings. There's obviously been some big news over the last couple of days, and we wanted to update the public on it. We wanted to start by just kind of going over, we've kind of updated these charts every month to give people an idea of how the statistics are progressing with the coronavirus. We've shown this before, but back at the end of May, we had 912 total cases in Ventura County, with 6 cases in the 93023 zip code, which includes the city, but also some areas outside of the city. 23 hospitalized patients, 13 in the ICU, and 30 deaths at that time. And at that time, we had 22,685 people tested, and 4.1% of those tested had tested positive. And then, so we updated that about a month afterwards and about a month ago, and you can see there were over 2,000 cases at that point, 14 cases in the 93023 zip code. Now, one note with that is that's 14 cases total, not 14 cases active at one time, but it had been 14 cases total. 51 hospitalized, 14 in the ICU, and 43 deaths. At that time, there was 50,000 tested. So a big increase in those tested, but not much of an increase in those that tested positive, with it going to 4.25%. And today, again, a little less than a month from now, we'll see what everybody is seeing statewide, which is a jump in total cases. The county now has over 4,600 cases, with 369 cases added yesterday. Again, total cases in the 93023 since the beginning of this pandemic are 29 cases. And if you review the statistics by area, the 93023 zip code is one of the lowest rates per 1,000 people that any area is seeing in Ventura County. I think it is the lowest rate, actually, and which we appreciate everybody making the effort and wearing the face coverings and social distancing to continue that trend, hopefully. Currently, there are 98 hospitalized, 29 in the ICU, and there have been 53 deaths. Big jump in the number of tested from 50,000 to 78,000. And one of the things to watch is that the number of those who tested positive has increased to about 5.86%. So across the country, across the state, we're hearing that there's a surge, and that seems to bear out locally, although Ventura County is doing well compared to most of our immediate neighbors. Last meeting, we went through the timeline of over the last couple of months. It seems like every week we have new orders, new openings, new closings, and we had noted at that time that we were hoping that it was the last order for a while. It was allowing nail salons, massage parlors, and other shops to reopen, and unfortunately, with yesterday, the state of California announced new restrictions. So we will have new restrictions to announce. We'll be putting a video out tomorrow announcing the county order more clearly, but for now, the state has announced that effective yesterday, all counties must close the indoor operations of dine-in restaurants, wineries and tasting rooms, movie theaters, family entertainment centers, zoos and museums, and card rooms. Additionally, they noted that bars, brew pubs, breweries, and pubs must close unless they offer outdoor dine-in meals. And so that's all counties statewide. And then additionally, the state announced that counties that have been on the monitoring list for 3 consecutive days, which unfortunately does include Ventura County, are required to shut down some additional businesses, including for indoor use at least. The businesses can continue for outside or pickup services, but it includes fitness centers, worship services, protests, offices for non-essential sectors, personal care services, hair salons and barbershops, and malls. And we are currently waiting. I thought it had come in while we were talking earlier, but it does not appear to be that. We're waiting for the updated Ventura County order that will have more specificity, but at this time that is the state's order. As a reminder, the county of Ventura can get more strict than the state, but can't be less strict. And for the city of Ojai, same thing. We can be more strict than either the state or the county, but we can't be less strict. So what the state has set will be the floor of, you know, what they've said has to close will have to close. The county, we expect it to be relatively in line with the state, but they may have some additional orders, although we don't expect that. But we should know more by tomorrow morning. We wanted to just note quickly that the testing capacity continues to expand. We all know that testing's been a challenge since day one for this, and we continue to roll out more testing county-wide. The 3 drive-through testing locations that have been announced are the Ford dealership in Santa Paula, Oxnard College in Oxnard, Ventura College in Ventura, with specific days here. The antibody testing is still being offered at the Oxnard Fire Department as part of a study with information on oxnard.org. And recently, the city and the Ojai School District reached out to the county and offered locations for testing sites. The challenge with getting testing sites, as we talked to the county about it, is that the resources are still a challenge, although they're making progress. So we had a good discussion with the county, and the county noted that they would look at those locations as a potential future site. So we're going to keep advocating for that in the Ojai Valley.
James?
Yes.
Real quick, didn't the county have a 2 or 3 roving testing vehicles or monitoring stations that they were sending around to different communities? We don't necessarily need one full-time in Ojai, but it'd sure be nice to be in the loop. Maybe once a week we set up a site that would just help our community.
Yeah, we talked about that too. We talked about even if it's just a couple days a week. And I think they saw the demand when they had the antibody testing for that, for the one day in the Ojai Valley. I think that was last week, but it might have been 2 weeks ago. And I think they saw the demand. I understand it was, you know, a line around the block essentially to get tested. So when we spoke to them, to the county recently, they were very receptive and asked us to submit a list of locations. So we're hoping that that's a good sign here, and we'll keep on it. We wanted to remind people of the existing executive orders in place. This has gone on for over 3 months now. Actually, I think we just hit 4 months and a day since we declared an emergency. And so some of the things we've announced early on that didn't affect people, we're hearing that we're getting more questions about them. So we wanted to remind everybody of some things that are going on. For example, we've had people ask if the city has a eviction moratorium in place because people that hadn't been affected are now affected and weren't aware. So we wanted to remind everyone that there is an existing residential and commercial eviction moratorium in place in the city of Ojai, and that information can be found on the coronavirus link on the city's website, the copy of the executive order that gives information on that. The city's face covering requirement from April has been replaced by the state's, but the face covering requirement's still in place, which is why we still have the signs at the entrance to town reminding people to wear face coverings at all businesses. And I think even more importantly now with the yesterday's order, closing indoor businesses again, is that the city still is allowing, still has an order that allows outdoor seating areas at restaurants either to be established or expanded. And we encourage restaurants and businesses that would like to utilize that service to contact us at extension 112 here at our phone number 805-646-5581. I think we still have 9, or I think we may have just issued the 10th outdoor dining permit, but there are some businesses who we're waiting to see if things were going to open up again. So I think with that news yesterday, we're encouraging people to contact us as soon as they would like to do that. So, and then lastly, similarly with fitness facilities closing indoor operation, we've had a few takers recently on our order that allows fitness instructors to reserve park space for a reduced fee to hold classes. And if there's a fitness instructor who was on the fence on that before, they may want to call us now at our extension 306 here, and we can work with them to get that going. I think we had been hearing from a lot of businesses that they were going to wait and see how it played out before changing their whole business plan. And unfortunately, with yesterday, we want to just remind people that they have these options, although we understand it's difficult and challenging for everyone. We have the order in place. The state has a face covering requirement. And lastly, we wanted to announce a couple of hot topics on questions we've been hearing and things we're hearing. We've heard that there's an increase in scams related to the coronavirus and countywide, particularly calls from alleged contact tracers who ask for personal information like a social security number, or who ask for a payment to perform the service. The county is performing contact tracing. They will not charge fees and will not ask for fees, and they will not ask for social security numbers. So if you get a call from one of those, they shouldn't be asking for that information if they're legitimate. We also had heard that there's some fraudulent housing opportunities being presented where people are calling and claiming to be unable to meet due to coronavirus, and they offer to mail the keys. That's an alarm bell for residents and to be aware of. And then we're also hearing about fraudulent coronavirus testing opportunities, apparently where they're trying to charge a fee and you send something in to get tested. There is no current system for that, so we remind everybody to visit vhca.org for the official testing opportunities in Ventura County. Then lastly, the question that's come up recently, including this weekend, is we get a lot of questions about whether team sports are allowed. I think there was a practice from what I heard, but I believe it was outside city limits, a team practice. Team sports are currently not allowed. So, football, baseball, soccer, those sports where there's contact. We're placing additional signage at the parks this weekend to remind residents and discourage large gatherings. Non-contact sports, non-contact individual sports are permissible at this point, are permitted by the county. So things like Tai Chi, yoga, and some of those types of activities are permitted. So we're working to get those in our outdoor exercise program as we can. But apparently this weekend there were a lot of issues. I think another city had a couple hundred people from LA show up to play softball because it's not allowed in LA. And Ventura County has noted that it's not allowed in Ventura County either at this time. So with that, that's the latest update on the coronavirus emergency, which continues, and we are continuing to try to respond to it.
Okay, are there any questions of the city manager?
Mayor Johnston?
Yeah, Bill?
James, is it factual to say that people are still free with proper physical distancing and face covering to patronize retail establishments inside?
Yes, for retail inside is still permitted. Restaurants, And
I'm just talking retail.
yeah, so retail still
If
permitted.
you want to buy a pair of buy a shirt at Rains or get a kitchen implement or something,
Correct.
we're fine with physical distancing and face covering. Is that
Correct.
correct? Still? Okay. Thank you.
Okay, was there another question out there?
Mayor, I just wanted to, I know that, Bill and I and James are going to be meeting on Thursday with the business community, but, I received quite a few phone calls this week, and businesses in Ojai are hurting. Most of them, their revenues are down anywhere from 60 to 70%. And with this latest shutdown, I'm sad to say this, but I think we're going to see more businesses going out of business. And it's just sad. It's just really sad to have a conversation with a business owner and not be able to do anything, not be able to I mean, you want to reach through the phone or whatever you can do and give them a hug or just let them know that you feel sorry for their pain. But it's sad and it's going to get worse.
Everyone, please shop if you can.
Mm-hmm.
Be a local business.
Right. Okay. We're on item number 4, modification of the structure of the commissions. Is there any introductory remarks from the staff?
Yeah, just very brief, if I may. Thank you. So one note is we wrote this. The recommendation says to adopt the ordinance, but we actually we jumped the gun a little bit. It's to introduce and have the first reading of the ordinance. So it'd have to come back for adoption. So this is the introduction and first reading of the ordinance to modify the structure of the Historic Preservation Commission and the Parks and Rec Commission. The City Council had reviewed those, the commissions and committees, and had requested that staff return with a ordinance that would reduce the size of each of those commissions from 7 to 5, which they currently have, and would set up the would allow each council member to appoint a commissioner, just like the Planning Commission has been modified to proceed, and we saw earlier today. And so that ordinance has been brought back. I think last time we brought the item for discussion, we were asked to get the feedback from the commissions on the changes. The Historic Preservation Commission discussed at their most recent meeting and stated that they prefer 7 to 5. And then the Parks and Rec Commission discussed at their last meeting, and they supported the move from 7. They supported 5 members plus 1 non-voting youth member. Although I should say, so they actually said that they were a little torn on whether it should be 5 plus the 1 non-voting youth member, or if it should be 5 including the non-voting youth member. We had recommended 5 members plus 1 non-voting youth member. So they said, that they would follow council's lead on that, whichever way council decides. And so with that, that's the feedback from the commissions.
Okay. Well, I'll offer a motion to approve the first reading. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay. Moved and seconded. Now we'll take discussion. Susan.
Okay, I request that your motion just be for the Park and Rec Commission, that we have a separate discussion about concerning the Historical Preservation Commission. I had, when this was.
You're moving to amend the motion?
Yes.
Is that right?
Yes.
Okay. Is there a second to the motion to amend? Okay, not hearing any. The motion will stand as it is.
I feel like this is being railroaded. I remember clearly at the last meeting when this was before us that I was assured that this was not, I was really surprised to see this because I was never in favor of reducing the Historical Preservation Commission to 5 members. And
well, then you vote against it then.
Yes, but I would like the opportunity to read we had 7 comments from longtime, former, and present historical commissions, explaining why they want to remain a 7-member commission. I feel that this is very disrespectful of their wishes and their volunteer time, not to at least consider why they want to remain a 7-member commission. I would also like to understand why council is so keen to make it a 5-member commission, because the logic that there's 5 of us and we each pick one, that alone is not justification for reducing the commission to 5 members, in my opinion.
Right, and you are entitled to that opinion. I would agree with that.
So I would like to, first of all, I'd like to know if this council listened to the discussion that the Historical Commission had at the end of their meeting. I listened to it, and then I discussed it with 2 of the longtime commissioners, and I want assurance that you read the email from Craig Walker and Brian Akins. There's 7 emails, lengthy emails, explaining why they want to. I need to know from each one of you that you had the courtesy to read these emails, these comments, and that your decision stands based on new information, that may be new information to you.
We've actually heard those even testified before the council over the years, plus we got the emails, so.
Okay, I would like to at least read Craig Walker's comment, because he is, one of the longtime Ojai historians.
Go ahead and read it, please.
Understands the work that's involved. To the Ojai City Council, I am opposed to tonight's proposal to reduce the number of Historic Preservation Commission members from 7 to 5. The commission itself strongly favors keeping the number at 7. If they see the benefit of a larger commission, why reduce it? They all serve as volunteers, and any additional costs are certainly negligible. When I served on the commission, I felt that 7 members was an optimal size for meaningful discussions. If 1 or 2 wouldn't attend, there was still enough to carry on. A quorum of 3 is too small on most items. And we see this problem now with the Planning Commission. We've had numerous meetings with only 3 planning commissioners present. In evaluating the second point from Craig Walker is, in evaluating the historic significance of properties and the impacts on them, more viewpoints are usually helpful. The commission has also recently formed some subcommittees which are easier to fill when drawing from a larger commission. A 7-member commission allows for more members who live outside the city limits. Some of the town's most historic structures were donated to the people of the Ojai Valley, that's in quotes, and are now located within the city. This is true for all of Mr. Libby's gifts and probably for others as well. Those who have studied Ojai's history often don't live inside the city limits. Additionally, the city historic ordinance was written to include structures in the city sphere of influence with county agreement. A balance of 4 city residents and 3 county residents has worked well for many years and should be continued. I see that the level of work that the Historic Commission has is equal to that of the Arts Commission. If the Arts Commission is allowed to remain a 7-member commission, I feel that there's ample justification to consider allowing the Historic Preservation Commission to remain a 7-member commission. Thank you.
Okay, you're welcome. Other comments?
Mayor?
Yes, Bill.
Susan, for the record, I did watch the discussion at the Historic Preservation Commission. I've spoken with Brian about this, and I did read all the emails. And I just want to say my position is still that one of the key differences for the Historic Commission is the role it plays in permitting and being part of the entitlement process. I think that the idea, I think this is a consequence of good governance with having a rotating nomination procedure, and it's with the advent of districting. And even without the districting, I think it makes sense because I think it builds a closer relationship between the commission and the members of the council, and gives the council all equal participation in the nomination process. And I also think it improves the efficiency and efficacy and more efficient use of staff time to have the 5 structured in this way. So I listened to you very carefully. I wanted to, out of respect, be clear on what my thinking is.
May I respond, Mayor?
Well, it's not a debate right now. Are there other comments from the council? Okay.
No.
Go ahead.
Bill, you know, you said what you said very well, but when I think about it, it doesn't really make sense, because even though we are in a particular district, which may change next year, our selection of the commissioners is at large.
Yes.
So I don't really understand what that has anything to do with it. And I just don't follow your logic in this case. Usually I do.
Okay, for a clarification, Bill, would you like to clarify?
Well, yeah, the idea is I think the real important reform here that's a good thing is the rotating nomination, because previously we've had just all nominations are in the hands of the mayor, and I think it's good to rotate that nomination process, and this works a lot better with 5 in that respect.
There's no reason why we couldn't figure out how to do that with 7.
Well, we have to just disagree, Susan.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. Are there any other comments? Okay, let's. This requires a roll call, Matt.
Yes, it does, as an ordinance.
Will the clerk please call the roll?
Mayor Pro Tem Blatz?
Yes.
Councilmember Francina?
No.
Councilmember Haney?
Yes.
Councilmember Wyrick?
Yes.
Mayor Johnston?
Yes. Motion passed. The next topic is the community organization funding for fiscal year 2021. City Manager.
Thank you. And we recently adopted the budget at the last council meeting we had. And in that budget, it included $35,000 in the Arts Commission funding line item and $114,200 in community organization funding line item. At that time, we noted that those were the line items, but we did not designate or recommend funding for any particular community group. And so it was requested to come back at this meeting to allow council to discuss which groups would receive funding and in what amounts. The Arts Commission has requested $35,000 in funding. The Ojai Valley Museum has requested $60,000 in funding, and the Chamber of Commerce has requested $51,000 in funding for the first 6 months of this fiscal year. No additional requests have been received, so we are bringing those back to council to determine which to fund.
Okay, thank you. Well, in light of the hiring freezes and the elimination of positions and the deficit, I would hope that we would stay within this amount. It's probably more than we can afford over time. The idea of giving funding for 6 months is fine, but that should be that should be the annual allocation. The other 6 months will have to be funded somewhere else, in my view. But does anybody have a motion they'd like to offer?
Well, I'll offer a motion, Mayor, if that's okay.
Sure, go, Bill.
Go with a recommendation of $35,000 for the Art Commission, $60,000 for the Ojai Valley Museum, and $51,000 for 6 months with the Ojai Chamber of Commerce.
Mayor,
that leaves a little contingency.
Okay, Randy?
I'll second that.
Okay, it's moved and seconded. Discussion? I would hope that the 6 month thing could be either explained or eliminated so that in this case, it's the chamber, but anybody receiving funding from the city, that sort of implies that there'll be another 6 months and we have no idea where we're going to be in 6 months. But we do have some idea and it's not going to be good. So I think that we give them what we feel we can afford now, and we reevaluate. And if things get better, then great, we'll give them more.
But not guaranteed. No expectation at this point.
Mayor, I agree with you 100%. If anything, it's an opportunity instead of giving a lump sum for a year that we're actually regulating it to 6 months, and we'll see how our finances are. And I would agree if right now they're dim, but then they could be dimmer. And if that's the case, then we obviously know what we're going to do in 6 months.
Okay, other discussion. So we have a motion and a second. It involves money, so I guess we have a roll call. Gail or Steve or James, who's calling the roll?
I will.
Okay.
Councilmember Haney?
Yes.
Councilmember Francina?
Yes.
Mayor Johnston?
No.
Mayor Pro Tem Blatz?
Yes.
Councilmember Wyrick?
Yes.
Okay, motion passes. We go to the next topic, memorandum of understanding for development of a climate park. I think this was at the request of at least, what, 2 council people? Yeah, Bill and Brian. Okay, who wants to explain what this is about? It seems somewhat of a rush, but I see Bill's smiling face. Are you going to take the lead on this?
I could. James, did you want to summarize? You had a little bit of a staff discussion here. There is one word added.
Yeah,
clarification.
I'll clarify that. So yeah, so it's a what we have before us for this item is a potential MOU. We wanted to clarify that the MOU would be for development of this of the proposal from Global Green. It's not yet it's not yet it's not the build the build portion of the project yet. It's still the design and the proposal. So we wanted to clarify that because I think the report I understand that some people were confused by that. So this is to develop a design and proposal with Global Green for a climate park in Ojai. And with that, I'll turn it over to Councilmember Wyrick and Blatz.
Ryan, do you want me to start out or?
Go ahead, Bill.
Okay. What we're seeing here, and I think the reason for action tonight, is the long hiatus before we have another meeting. And the fact that we have a lead person and a global, it's not just a name, it is a global organization that wants to identify Ojai in a relationship for the first concept development of a climate park in the entire United States. They are, it's one of these things which they are attracted to our characteristics. We have a unique opportunity behind City Hall between the grant that was received, magnificently applied for and received on the invasive species. We have the in-stream flow grant that complements that, and this only leverages it potentially further into something that will have implications in a positive sense, not just for the city, but for the entire community. We had a conference call about this, and it was really, really fascinating because what they're really looking for is just a memorandum of understanding. They're looking at potential for sister city relationships that could attract resources for sustainability, educational participations, looking at soils, topography, predisposition for all kinds of environmental improvement. A lot of expertise really on a global level that could help with the kind of policy goals that we are very ambitious about embracing, and sometimes with limited resources. And this is a way of getting more resources without budget expenditures. So Brian, I hope I summarized more or less accurately.
Yeah, thank you, Bill. look, this is an interesting opportunity that we have in Ojai. Right now, we have no money. We have no positive projects in the works. We have very little we can do that's inspirational, that fits into the character and mantra that is Ojai. Yet, from a confluence of very lucky things at the same time during all these very unlucky things that are going on, we have a very solid amount of grant money that can dovetail really well with an organization that we ended up getting in contact kind of by happenstance, really through Jamie Fleming's efforts at the chamber. And we have a unbelievably world-class organization and a top-tier expert in the field who we have a chance to take what is the property behind City Hall and allow them as it being their canvas for Bjorn and his art. And his art is climate. His art is the kind of integrating an entire kind of small ecosystem. It's hard to explain, but it's really interesting. And it's very appropriate for Ojai. And here we have an opportunity to take something that we're already going to be working on that needs to be probably cleaned up a little bit. And at the same time, where we have no funding to be able to contribute to it, we have an interested party who says, hey, if you'll give us the canvas and work with us, we'll raise the money and we'll do everything we need to be really good partners. And that's why we're starting with an MOU. And we're going to keep working on this until we get somewhere down the road to have some sort of design agreement that will come back to the council and move forward with. And really, at this point, what Global Green needs is us to show our support for them doing what they want to do, which is really taking this by the reins and raising money to be able to get this thing working. And I got to say, there's not a lot to be excited about right now because of the COVID situation and the economics. This is something to be really excited about. And I don't think we should overthink it. I think we should get this MOU signed, keep this process moving forward, and bring it back to the council as is needed, and get the groups that are going to be involved in the grant all working together with Global Green, so that there's just going to be a really amazing amount of effort that's going on what we're calling the City Hall campus, and what can be done with that really the back area where the river kind of goes down and there's that beautiful stream. This is, I know Bill is too. We're both really, really passionate about this. And this is something that we can all rally behind as something positive during a time where it may be a while before we have anything really positive to rally around in town. So we're hoping that everybody's in agreement to take this next step. And since we're going to be on hiatus for a while, we wanted to get this done now. And really so they can hold up a piece of paper and say, hey, we have the support of Ojai, so they can start doing their job to raise some money.
The mayor?
Yes, Randy.
I'll probably be one of the dissenters tonight regarding this, but Carnegie Mellon came to Ojai, and it took us almost 3 years to get an MOU with them. And here we have a company, and I don't know if any of you went to their website and looked at them. I don't know if anyone in the public has, but I did. And the thing that scared me the most about them is how affluent they are. And with affluency comes gentrification. And my fear is that this group is tied to a lot of wealthy money people. And Ojai has a brand, and that these people want to take our brand and make something, I don't know, because there's no clear definition of what they're going to do. There's no, what are we giving them? Are we giving them the stream? Are we giving them the south side of the mountain? Are we giving them the acreage right behind? Are they in conflict with the memorial garden? We have nothing here that clearly defines what they're going to do, how they're going to do, when they're going to do, and what's the benefit from us. But they should receive a benefit right off the get-go by saying we are branded with Ojai. And that's my fear here, is we know nothing about them. They have not come to us and talked to council. They haven't talked to us individually. They haven't come and done a presentation. But I'll tell you what, go to their website. Just go take a peek. $250, $1,000 plate dinners, $100,000 plate dinners. It's fundraising like that I'll be honest with you, scares the daylights out of me, because that's not what we are. And we are going to allow someone or something or an entity like that to come into our neighborhood, embed themselves in our backyard. And I don't know if that's in our best interest. Now, that's one side of it. Do I agree that climate change is obviously something that we should be working for, and that we should be doing as much as we can to mitigate and figure out good practices to do that? 100% behind that. I'm just not sure if this is the deal. And I'm not sure if rushing to an MOU with this group is in the benefit of the community. So while I'm on the fence, I would like more time to digest it. I'd like more time to meet with Global Green, and then their project manager is Ryan. What did you say his name was?
Well, the project
yeah. Does he live here?
He's a global citizen. He currently he called when we talked to him. We were on a conference call. He was in South Africa in the winter.
Yeah.
They're looking. They have their organization. North American headquarters is in Los Angeles, and we're looking at providing a study area. That's all we're looking at doing.
Well, like I said, I'm straddling the fence because I need more information. And from what I saw on their website, like I said, it just scares the daylights out of me that all I see is money and the need for money. In fact, initially they wanted $100,000 from us. First, they came in and said, we want to do this. Then they came back and said, well, we need money. God bless James, because he held out and said, no, we don't have any money.
We all said no.
And then they decided, okay, we'll go another path. I'm just saying that I think the community deserves more information.
Okay.
And that's my take on it.
Yeah, I tend to agree with Randy. I'm not opposed to it. I think that, obviously it's something like a quote climate park, whatever that is. It says the first in the United States. Is it the first in the world or the second in the world, or
there are other locations in other countries?
Okay, do we know where they are? Or normally when something like this happens, they send you a brochure or pictures or something. And I tell you, the thing that concerns me, and it's where I don't agree with Randy, the money doesn't scare me. I'm delighted they got money and maybe they'll spend it here. But what concerns me is I don't want us to burden the City Hall campus with yet another overlay. We've already got, organic garden and memorial garden and pickleball, plus our basic function. And we're having difficulties with a very old lease with our friends at Help of Ojai that I didn't see kind of a site plan.
Mayor, I had one more question, please. There's also
let me finish and I'll come back.
I'm sorry.
I didn't see anything here that said that they weren't overlaying the entire parcel or the parcels of city-owned land, and they'll tell us later what they intend to design and do with it. I think that's kind of rushing it a bit. Does anybody, did we not put this in the brochure or the agenda because we hadn't received it, or is there a place we can go to see this between now and when we approve this? Okay, Randy.
You want an answer, Johnny?
Yeah.
Well, there is an answer. Yeah.
The answer. The idea is we got to start somewhere, and they want to be assured that they can start working on it, and we want to be assured that we have given them the opportunity to start inquiring, designing, knowing that nothing can start with a shovel in the ground until there's a whole nother round of approval. Mm-hmm. But we want it. This is what everybody involved said, this is what gets them enough to get started. This is what doesn't commit us to anything specific, but says we are going in good faith to look at it. And what the scope of what they want to do, if it's not consistent with what we want, then we're going to have another round of talking about this. But what we're hoping is that in our discussions with them, which was once with everybody physically here in Ojai, and then various conversations on Zoom and whatnot now, is that they want to feel confident that they are not going to get the rug pulled out from underneath them if they're going to put in the effort to try and raise some money. And Bjorn put together a design of what we're talking about.
Okay,
and we made it real clear to them that we don't know if we can approve anything until we see that. But we are, if this is approved, willing to say, hey, we're going to take a real hard look at it and try every way we can to try and make this work. But obviously we're not committing to anything fully yet. And their concern has been, exactly what's going on right now is this something that the city is going to bait and switch them? They're not worried about funding. They're not worried about these other issues. They're saying, look, this is such a good opportunity for what we want to do. And it's such a good mesh with the distance it is from LA, and that Bjorn has been here physically and already met with us. And he's willing to come out of South Africa to get this done on his own dime, more money they can raise, that they really like the idea right now, especially under COVID situation, that they have a project that's in their kind of extended backyard where this might work. So that's really what we're bringing. We're bringing the convenience, the opportunity, and the land. And
but why an MOU? I don't understand the MOU. In my background in development, and what I see before our planning commission frequently is the person who's proposing something has invests a little bit in
concept review.
Yeah, concept review as to what is the site, and here's a picture or two of things that's been other places, and then we'd like to make it site specific. If you guys will agree that this generally is compatible, now we'll sign something like an MOU and say you got sort of a period of due diligence to come back, and because it seems to me we're sort of leasing the property of sorts, and then there is a certain right they have to it, and then what are we going to do? Say no when they come back?
Yes, we've made it clear that if we have to say no when they come back, we could still say no. We don't want to. That's not where we're going, and we don't want to send the message that we're going to be really nitpicky.
For that? Why can't we do it by something much simpler that just says for preliminary design that we'll give very serious consideration and believe it's compatible with the other things we do here.
Well, this is our restoration ecology that we're looking at doing. We're not looking at providing an entitlement to any other agency to use city land. This is a
renting it out, or this isn't them making money off it, or using it.
Yeah, I know, but what about the conflict with the other people who are already here? That's the only.
We've already discussed, in fact, we discussed that significantly with them. We've made it really, really clear. In fact, the first conversation we had with everybody was to make sure everybody was on the same page. And the first meeting I had post talking about this on the very first minute was with James about ensuring that we could set a structure up that would work appropriately with different people on the property doing their work at the same time. And I've already talked to Brian Hawley at Pax Environmental and kind of briefed him about what this might look like if it came up, to at least just kind of set the table for him. We talked about what the relationship on the campus would be between James, Greg Grant, Jamie Fleming, and anybody else who needed to be there. And we made it real clear with Global Green on how that would work, saying we don't want to micromanage what you're going to do once we have kind of something voted on later, but you do have to play well with others, and everybody needs to make sure that that the invasive species grant is working the way it needs to be and autonomous, and that this needs to be autonomous, but that everybody coordinates on some level together. And I think everybody has been informed and is well aware of that, and this is supposed to kind of review, discuss that a touch, but we didn't want to get too specific. That's really in the next round when we really want to kind of get into the nitty gritty and some of those other details. But we're not, I don't believe, Bill and I think that there's any part of this MOU that would prevent us from having the flexibility we need as a city later, but it does give them enough certainty to move forward and start engaging on a broader scope of kind of building their background of the project and their fundraising and those types of things.
So, Mayor?
Randy?
Mayor. Again, what I found interesting about the last comments I heard was 6 people know about this. That's what I just heard. Jamie, Bill, Ryan, the PAX individual, and maybe one other person. Again, this is something that should be vetted in the public arena. I see no reason why we can't wait a month and hold a public hearing. I'm lost on what the reason to expedite this is. That's why I'm lost there. The other thing is, Ryan, you and I already sit on a committee regarding this site. Does that committee no longer exist? And because I see you and Bill appointed yourself to this committee, should we have that discussion as to who should be on this committee? So
let me say this first, Randy. The reason we can't talk about this in a month is because we don't have a council meeting in a month, because we're on recess, which is why we said we're trying to get this done now. And 2,
we're going to have a meeting in September.
I've explained this a bunch of different
guys.
times, that Bill and I were stuck in a position where we got notice from Jamie Fleming with 24 hours to go, and there was nothing we could do about it. And then once the 2 of us said, hey, Jamie, we'll try and get there tomorrow at like 11 o'clock in the park, we could not do anything else because we were locked under the Brown Act. And you're saying, why aren't we having a public hearing? We're having a public hearing. That's why we're having a public hearing right now.
No, we're not. They're not here doing a presentation.
No, but we
know
are.
nothing about this company.
Guys,
But I
we're
mean-
discussing it in public. That is true. And we understand your reservations, Randy. Susan, you haven't had a chance. I thought I heard your voice out there.
Yeah. Well, first of all, as you probably know, I have reservations about the taking down the hundreds of trees. I need to investigate that aspect of it. And those 2 things in some ways are not related, and in other ways they are related. But as far as this a memorandum of understanding, it says, I don't know how this gives them any more security than simply postponing this, because it says termination and amendment. The last paragraph says Global Green and the city of Ojai may terminate this memorandum of understanding at any time by notifying the other party in writing, either by electronic means or by mail. Global Green and the city of Ojai may amend this memorandum of understanding at any time, blah, blah, blah. So I want to know, what is this jeopardized if we take a little more time? We could even have a special meeting. Can we walk the land? What happens if this is, what are the repercussions if we postpone this?
Hey, could I respond to that, Mayor?
Yeah.
Go, Bill.
So what I'm concerned about is that this again represents something of an unprecedented opportunity to leverage what we already have committed in this very special ecological zone, and to be able to leverage it even more in terms of a restoration habitat, in terms of a restoration ecology, and in a manner that would have benefits across service club involvement, our educational system, private and public, the overall sustainability goals. It's a way of leveraging. And what the MOU is, and what we risk not approving it tonight, is what they're looking for is, does this council embrace, the idea of saying, we welcome you into our community, and develop a concept for us to vet and look at. If we've already, been around the bush on this thing, and if we wait until the end of summer, I really fear that it's like any kind of relationship. They're going to say, well, we're going to go elsewhere with this energy that they're offering to partner with us on right now. They want to move forward. This is not a plan. It's basically a commitment that we're going to work. We want to work with this organization in good faith to see what they come up with. That's what it comes down to with me.
Can we do this with a simple motion of the council saying that we are very interested in seeing what they have in mind, and then have them produce something? I mean, we didn't even have a brochure, let alone the,
Well,
you know.
I don't think that's how the world-class organizations like this operate, frankly.
Well, the ones I've dealt with, which are not a
And
lot.
I think that's where, that's where I'm coming from, is that we're not binding ourselves, but we are looking at a really, real opportunity, and I just don't want to see it evaporate on us.
That in the last 5 pages are the brochure. I mean, this does explain. I mean, the Integral Climate Change Solutions talks about Ojai. It talks a lot about specific things in Ojai. Talks about some of the general ideas about what they want to do. It's all the principles of it that are consistent with the memorandum of understanding.
But they're
it has
talking
deliverables, it has project design, it has a lot of things without, we're not at a point where we have a site plan, but
right, but they're talking
a lot of
Ryan, let me just ask you a question. Doesn't it say in here where it implies or specifically says that there will be revenues produced off of this, which will be shared? That sounds like an amusement park or a tourist attraction, which is fine.
I believe, Mr. Mayor, what it says that if revenues are generated and that the MOU covers a circumstance for that would occur. I don't believe that there's anything in here. And by the way, there's nothing in here that really locks us in anything, but I don't know where you're talking about where there's some sort of kind of agreement or understanding that there's definitely going to be economic drivers on the property.
They indicated in here that there was some provision in case there ever were any profits or the net. What I would ask if I was doing this and somebody came to my, I would say, Ryan, where else are you doing this? Could you show us what your business plan is in South Africa or wherever this person has done this before, just so we'd have some idea what we're actually partnering in and what we might see here in Ojai, because I think Randy's right. They're buying the brand more than anything else. We don't have enough land here to make this much of a park. It's got to be more of a demonstration of some sort, which is great. It may work fine, but it's just very strange that they've got all this money in these big shots. Why wouldn't they have some kind of thing that they hand out of some sort?
Because every study area is different, and they apply their creative expertise to each study area, and they just want, will you partner with us in looking at
this? How about a list of the study areas they've done, just so we would know where they've been and what they were
Why Ojai?
Well,
why not Ojai?
Well, I'm just saying, why Ojai? How did we jump into the arena of this park? But again, getting back to this,
I have an answer for you, but go ahead.
Bill, I keep hearing this word "we," and I haven't heard the word "we" regarding community. I keep hearing "we" regarding 4 or 5 or 6 people.
Yeah,
I think this. I just think this needs to be vetted properly.
For them to come and interact with our community, they need to
Carnegie Mellon took 3 years to clearly demonstrate to this community. And how many meetings did we attend? And how many events did we go to?
And where are they now?
Okay. It didn't work. It did not work.
No, and that's what I'm trying to say.
No, but,
can I read something that was given to me by one of the people involved with this? There's 10 points. Because I was trying to understand it. So this is what she offered me. May I read this, Mayor? It's quick.
Yes,
Some key things that I feel are important to focus on. 1, this will be the first climate park in Ojai. I think she must mean in the United States.
Yes.
Now, Global Green has the ability to fundraise and raise needed funds for these projects. And these needed funds for these projects. 3, this is the planning stage. So the next step will be to announce this project so fundraising can begin, and then the more specific planning can happen. 4, this will be a collaborative effort involving local people and organizations. And that's her role, to help coordinate this. 5, this project, she lives in Ojai, the person who gave me this. This project, what?
Is this Sarah?
No, her name's not on here, and I know her name, I just can't.
Okay, well,
she's not finished. Let her keep going.
will
It
involve
seems like everybody pretty
I
much
didn't
knows
notice
where
this page.
what eco-environment. See, I like what I'm seeing. I'm just not understanding. There's just, you know, how this is all coming about. So I'm willing to invest time to understand it tonight. Okay, this project will involve and reflect all the sustainable eco-environmental efforts made thus far in Ojai. Now here's the part I really like, 6. There will be a large educational component to this effort, which will draw in schools and even partnerships outside the United States. And I don't know quite what that means, the part about partnerships outside the United States. 7, these are needed solutions that will revolutionize the planet. 8, online workshops and documentation of this process is already being discussed, especially as COVID reality forces the issue of more online programming. 9, a partnership with Global Green will open up the needed resources to fund green, affordable housing, along with a multitude of other projects in Ojai. And then she didn't include this here, but she did mention something in a separate email about creating green jobs. I mean, that's a huge vision, you know, that it sounds good. It sounds good. And I'm trying to understand it, and I'm willing to keep listening to understand it better. And I especially need to understand if, I mean, it seems to me that we're like an ideal location for this. So why would they go elsewhere? That's the part I don't understand. Because we obviously can express our interest in learning more. So why would they go elsewhere?
They'll find somewhere else to go if we don't do it. I mean, they will find somewhere else to go. Right. This happened because of a confluence of luck. And we are staring the gift horse in the mouth. Look, there are YouTube videos and tons of information about Bjorn online. I just forwarded one of them that I watched a while back when we first met with him, that I just forwarded to James. We did not put a list of information and other sites for you to go to and look at. They put together this very comprehensive integral climate change solution document that's tailored exactly for Ojai and discusses a lot of the Ojai-centric issues. If we want to talk about what a climate park is and other things in more general terms or how they might be applicable, not on paper, but in ideas, then type in Bjorn's name. It's all based on what he calls the Earth Charter and Integral Climate Park Design. He has put a few of these together. It is a complicated kind of miniature ecosystem from the soil to the sand to the grass to the trees. And we have talked, and what I envision this being is that while the people are in there working hard on the invasive species removal grant, we can have the climate people in there at the same time. There may be some crossover where they work together. There may be things where they don't work together. But there may also be an educational component that when we spoke with them in their first visit, because they utilize some services of UCSB students, graduate students, and undergrad students who may be working on the project as volunteers or through their school, that hopefully we would love to incorporate local curriculums from the public schools and private schools to be able to go there and view this. Bjorn's totally on board with that. Global Green's on board with that. There's a lot of synergies that we can create with this. And I agree. We're not doing it in kind of the normal path and the normal timing because we got tripped up on this thing right before COVID. And now right before our break, they're telling us, hey, look, we really want to get this started. And we're not sure if you wait a couple more months, whether, we're going to wait around to do it. So
I understand.
There is a lack of information, but if you want to dig in and do the research, look up the names. It's all online. I mean, there's tons of information.
I did look when this was mentioned in the proposal that the chamber gave us 2 weeks ago. So I did look at that time because I saw, it mentioned. What I want to get clear on, I'm inclined to, I know you and Bill would have the best interests of Ojai at heart, that your motivations are.
Okay, come on, we're getting late. We're almost out of time.
I want to ask our city attorney about, this MOU the last two paragraphs on page 7. Is this really something that we can end at any point the way it's written? Because there's some, I just don't the language, it says if any.
Well,
Legally,
Matthew,
yes.
go ahead.
You can end the agreement if what is written, what is in your agenda packet is what is approved and what is signed. Under section, the final section, termination and amendment, the city has the right to terminate this agreement at any time without consequence legally. Politically is another question. That will be for the council, of course.
And
it does not prohibit you from pulling out of it at any time with, of course, that would be a council decision.
Mayor?
Yes.
Okay. So what I would just ask, Susan to think about is upside versus downside. Okay. The downside, as we've just heard, is very strictly in our hands with the termination agreement. In terms of if something starts to develop that we're not comfortable with. On the other hand, there's major upside if we approve this, and then that gives them the door to come and start making presentations and demonstrate to us what they're thinking of in more specifics to invest in that kind of resources to make those kinds of presentations to us. And the downside of asymmetrically of not taking advantage of this tonight is they're going to go on to another opportunity. So to me, it's very asymmetric on the positive side here because of what Matthew just described.
So basically, we're agreeing to they're not going to be doing any digging or building or anything of that nature. Okay, I'm fine.
No, absolutely not.
Mayor, I just have one last comment. Why would we make any agreement with a gun to our head? And that's what I'm hearing, Bill.
Well, okay, guys. Okay.
We're going to make a choice, and they're going to run away and leave us.
I'm gonna just, for the purpose of it's getting late, make a motion to approve the MOU.
Yeah.
Right. I'll second.
Okay, I think we've debated far enough. Do we need a roll call on this, Matt?
No, because we're not promising to spend any money.
Okay,
let's just take a vote. Let's just have a vote.
But
yeah,
there's no harm having a roll call. It clearly will be split.
In effect, a lease of sorts.
Let's have a vote.
That's fine.
Call the roll.
Mayor Pro Tem Blatz?
Yes.
Mayor Johnston?
I'm going to abstain because I don't have enough information.
Councilmember Wyrick?
Yes.
Councilmember Haney?
No, I don't like abstaining, but that would be the reason that I can't vote yes or no. We don't have enough information.
Councilmember Francina?
I'm voting yes because I believe the information is available to us. We can find out. I'm voting yes. Yes.
Okay, is that, I guess motion passes.
Thank you, everybody. We'll come back and you'll feel much more comfortable when we get to do this again.
I hope so, but it's the first time I've ever heard of a subject being introduced by Randy being fearful that these guys are so rich and this being such a cheap operation that they didn't even put a package.
I'm telling you, you guys all laugh about it, but when you think about the gentrification of this community and the fact that the wealth that is moving into this community, and if that doesn't concern you,
you're right. Randy, I
got problems.
Okay, we have a very strong termination agreement.
Yeah. Okay. So last
we won't make a too bougie climate park, I promise.
Listen, we're going to have the homeless sleeping next door. That'll keep it,
Yeah, right.
Less gentrified. Thank you, Susan.
It'll balance things out. Okay.
Okay, number 7, before we are out of time altogether. Mr. City Manager, this is on here because the emergency committee wanted us to talk about a REACHCO. It's pretty late at night to be getting into that discussion.
I think all we're being asked to do is to approve a presentation. We're not making any decisions. Right?
Oh, that's right. This is the one where.
Yeah. So the climate committee, the climate committee has requested that the city council consider this, and the city council had previously talked about having the building appeals board review it as a building code amendment, but hasn't actually directed that the Building Appeals Board do so. So it's brought back onto the agenda for council to decide whether to send it to a commission or schedule it for a future presentation, or determine how the council would like to proceed with it.
Well, I'm going to move to refer it to the BAB for review as a Title IX issue.
I'll second that.
Okay, it's moved and seconded. Is there any discussion?
I'm not understanding. The city, they wanted to, oh, you're asking them to first go before the Building Appeals Board, before
Correct.
What happens? Does, so the Building Appeals Board doesn't vote on it, they just get a presentation?
They,
And
they would make a recommendation.
Recommendation.
Yeah,
They would make a recommendation.
Same as the fire code, right? Or the Title IX?
Yes.
It's basically a Title IX issue, and so we're delegating for them to do a full, to hear the presentation, do Q&A, deliberate on it.
And we can attend that. Yeah, we can attend it. Just
Oh,
to-
yeah, it's a policy matter. We can speak at it. So it's a policy matter.
But it will.
That's correct.
But it will still come before us, that's my concern.
Yeah, so the council to deal with it.
Fine.
Okay, we have a motion and a second.
There were, can I note, Mayor Johnston, that there were 2 public comments, one from Laura Ward and one from Michelle Ellison, and those have been provided to the city council as well.
Right, yeah.
And I think Laura was based on, she thought we were going to make a decision tonight.
Yeah, I think so too, which we are not planning to.
Yeah, that's more appropriate for the future. I'll hang on to it.
Those are the discussion items. Should we have those 2 read out loud? Isn't that what we're supposed to do?
Well, one favored it and one was concerned and.
I have read both messages.
But I think we can refer this.
Personally.
Yeah, it's in, yeah, just have it put in the record. Okay. We need, is there any objection to referring this to the Building Appeals Board? Hearing none, the motion passes. Council member reports. Don't feel obligated to give one.
Well, I will say this, Johnny, real quickly. At 9 o'clock tonight, there was a, what was it? Oh, I don't want to say it wrong. The global meditation centered out of Ojai to contact extraterrestrials. I have not confirmed whether or not they contacted any extraterrestrials, but pretty cool that this global synchronized meditation tonight, that's been an ongoing 10-day thing. In case anybody didn't hear about it, was centered out of Ojai tonight.
Okay, well, you can report in September whether they made contact. Okay.
I will.
Susan, do you have anything?
Oh, I just want to remind my colleagues and the public that there's another Community Advisory Committee meeting tomorrow, Wednesday, July 15, at 11 o'clock, the Go Ojai demonstration project. And, it's going to be an interesting discussion. So, yeah.
What was the time on that?
11 o'clock.
11 o'clock, okay. Randy, you have anything?
No, I wanted to say on Ryan, on that group that's meditating, they must have meditated on your climate park. No, sir, I have nothing to add.
Okay, Bill?
I think they were inspiring us to deal with the Ventura County Sheriff's Association.
No, okay. Okay, city managers report.
A couple of quick things. As council knows, we adopted that legislative platform earlier this year that allows us to write some letters of support or opposition when they're urgent or timely. We have 2 that we wrote this week that I wanted to report back on that are in line with the platform, and also make sure, or get any feedback if there's any. But we wrote one on Pine Mountain logging. It's a letter of opposition that we will send to the Forest Service tomorrow morning to the proposal to log Pine Mountain. We also wrote one on industrial hemp. The ordinance has been prepared by the county and is being discussed tomorrow at an agricultural committee meeting, which I will be attending via Zoom. The ordinance has 2 potential setbacks on hemp. One is a half mile from residential zones. The other is 600 feet from residential zones. The city of Ojai from the beginning has been adamant that we are requesting at least a half mile from all city limits or from the entire city limit, not from just residential zones, due to the air quality and the smell impact that we would have here in the valley. So we've submitted a comment letter to the committee on that, and we will attend the meeting to make the same comments. And then lastly, Southern California Edison has started to send out public safety power shutoff information. That is, we all know that was a big issue last year whenever the fire weather was approaching, and we are anticipating that that's going to start happening more frequently in the next couple of months. The public safety power shutoffs, if you recall, is when they turn off the power prior to what they consider to be fire weather to prevent a fire. So Southern California Edison has been contacting cities, and we got a report on something new they're doing called a customer resource center, which is a center that will residents and customers can go to get things like water and resiliency devices. And we requested today that they consider adding one of these centers in Ojai, and again identified some locations that they would be able to use, including some city sites to do so. But I think importantly, just the public safety power shutoffs, I think it's time to start thinking about those and preparing for those, and we'll stay in contact with Edison to do so. So,
Mayor, I had a question.
Bill?
James, will you keep us informed when the county makes a decision on I think it's the MECO, the cottage kitchen thing?
Yes.
Because I'm not against that idea in principle. I think many of us are okay with it in principle. We just don't like the idea of the default discretion being taken away. So once the county act, I would like, just let us know.
For sure. We'll do that. And the 30-second
in terms of our local option on
Thank
that.
you. Yeah, the 30-second report back on that is that I think it's 3 cities now have basically sent the same letter we sent, which is we oppose the way it's proposed right now. And the county last week noted that they were planning to bring it in June, at the end of June, but it was delayed a little bit because of coronavirus, but they're preparing to bring it soon. So we'll bring an update as soon as we hear it.
And the other comment is, I didn't realize you were like me, like finding, I don't know when you sleep. I sometimes wonder when I sleep. James and I were both watching Camarillo's council meeting. What was their third one past midnight?
Yeah, it was 1:30, I think.
Yeah, so we're looking like a paragon of efficiency here, Mayor.
Good. And thank you for your help. Okay, we're going on break, and so there are probably going to be a number of things that will come up during that period of time that we'll want to talk about for agenda. Rather than trying to figure them out tonight, because we don't know what priority they'll take, the city manager and I will work with all members of the council to be sure that if they have urgencies that they need to get on the agenda, that we'll see that they're included.
I have an urgency that I want to bring up. When it's my turn. I just didn't want you to close the meeting.
Yeah, okay. Get on with it. Okay. Or you're going to get caught in the door.
I know that there's been at least 1 or 2 letters in, there was an article in the Ojai Valley News, and the headline said, hundreds of invasive trees to be axed in Ojai. And consequently, there were letters to the editor questioning that. I think that we owe it to the public, and we owe it to concerned people like me who may have a different view about, the so-called invasive species. It seems like we need to maybe do a tour of the area or a more detailed report on what this is all about, because otherwise you're going to have a lot of outraged citizens. People need to understand the justification for this. So I want to know, I think this is not scheduled till September. Is that correct, James?
I believe so. And the Public Works Director and I spoke about it today, and he's been getting calls too. So we did talk about putting some a report together that we can provide to the public.
Okay, and maybe do a walking tour even. I mean, I would like one personally. Maybe Bill can take me. I want to.
I'd be happy to go down there. It's a great walk.
Yeah. I want to get people more familiar.
Yeah,
and
we can coordinate that.
You go for a walk with Bill, and then let me know. I'll see what we can put on the agenda for you. Okay.
And then this I don't know that this is urgent yet, But if you, the uranium mine issue that Michael Shapiro brought up, and that's constantly in James Hines' emails, maybe at some point we want to do a letter concerning that.
And under our platform, I'm sure we can cover that. That's a real jeopardy to the town. So
Yeah, we're working on
I
that.
believe such a letter has already been written, Mayor and Council, on that mine.
Yeah. Okay. We are done here. Nothing more to see. Have a nice break.
Have a nice summer.
Thank you, everyone.